Manchester by the Sea Select Board to order. Jeff?
Here.
Brian?
Here.
Kathy?
Here.
Ann is here and John.
John is here.
Next. The first item is, this meeting is being recorded. That's not an item, that's a declaration. And avoidance of an open meeting law complaint. With which we have experience. Is there any public comment on non-agenda items here or online?
Not saying online, no.
The next item is the chairman's report, and I have nothing to report. We then discuss action items, which are things that we want to discuss in the foreseeable future. You, Kathy, you are the specialist in this.
Especially, I have nothing to add.
Okay,
There are two there that we talked about that are not on today's agenda. One was the short-term bylaw.
I saw it here on the, it's still on the action list, right? For the.
Yeah, still on the
Okay,
action list.
yeah.
We just need to, we'll carry those forward.
okay.
I have two questions or comments.
Mhm.
Should we put in a schedule here for the harbor report? Yeah. You know when that's due? Master plan.
That's not the Harbor Advisory Committee.
It's
The
the
harbor
management
management.
report.
I spoke to Sarah Creighton after we got the draft report, and she said they had a lot of work to do. So
So it goes way down to the bottom.
it was the second August meeting,
Okay,
Second August meeting.
fine.
second August meeting.
Will you be here?
It'll be online.
I'll be virtual, so you can
She'll be
see
here.
me if you want to.
And appropriately at sea.
The other thing that we should have on there in the, for, July 21st is a meeting with the Board of Health. Or do you want,
Okay.
should we do that? Do you think it would be better to do that as an off,
It might make sense to do that as a special meeting
as a special meeting?
sooner if you could, but
Okay,
that's something to
Then-
work out with schedule.
okay. Can we see if we can schedule it for the, okay, that planning board will be here on the not this Thursday, but the following Thursday.
26th.
Yeah. Well, no, that's a bad day.
That's a bad day.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. What is the first Thursday in July? Probably the
The
fourth.
third.
That's the third.
That's the third, close.
That's a bad day. Okay, how about the 10th?
Okay.
What is that?
The 10th, yeah.
Joint Board of Health.
Joint Board of Health and select. board.
Okay, so
Yeah,
I'll check with them.
I'm just suggesting that because I think if you could get some resolution before your July 21st meeting,
yes.
I think that'd be helpful.
Actually, then I'm gonna change my, that I have nothing, my comment that I have nothing to add. We did discuss, roles and responsibilities for the downtown improvement
Mhm.
work, having a discussion with the planning board and the committee, just to be clear on roles and responsibilities, so there's no overlap.
Mhm.
So I think we can discuss that at a select board meeting or
Yeah.
a planning board meeting, but I think it should be on the action item list.
Okay, what was it again? The roles and,
Roles and responsibilities, for downtown
okay,
vitalization or whatever.
okay.
Invigoration.
and one other item, the Facilities Planning Committee. Do we have a timeline for that yet?
Nothing.
Well, we should get something in place largely because the senior center activities are kicking in and they need some direction through the Facilities Planning Committee sooner rather than.
So
We just put out the
Yeah.
notice for,
The three at-large
Right.
members.
And is there a deadline for when that's supposed to, in other words, when can we elect those or approve those members?
yeah, again, it'd be nice if you could do it on the 7th when you meet.
I think it would be helpful to at least make sure we have identified the other committees who are sending representatives, set a deadline for those.
So those
Okay.
people.
Yeah,
And
and then
those are
at
in the
large,
minutes.
we can.
Yeah.
So, well, the seventh is a long way away for that, but the at-large people, all right, can put the seventh for that?
So the seventh, we will interview the at-large
Yeah.
people.
Haven't received any, but
Oh, well, we still got.
I'll ask Chuck, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
so that you, well,
Oh, we could just do a little bit of
yeah,
Nudging, yeah.
nudging. Yeah,
DC, so,
It does help to have a deadline, yeah.
okay, so
And-
seventh, okay.
And giving the other committees a deadline to select their representatives as
yeah,
well.
that could be early. Okay,
So. We need to. Do we have the proposed bylaw? Is there a proposed bylaw for the short-term rental?
No, we do not. So. We need some direction on.
It's hard to review something.
Right.
So,
So would it make sense for one or two of you to work with planning board member or two? That might be a
Yeah.
good way to, good place to start.
this is on the short.
Put it as an action and discuss it when we talk about liaison assignments.
okay,
All right,
By then we'll have another town administrator also sworn in, because he'll be probably having some significant effort on that part as well. He may want to offer.
okay. The next item is the new town administrator swearing in. And.
So we have Tony and a couple of very special guests
Yes,
with us, so it'd be great if all of them could come up perhaps.
yes, come up to the center and.
To the center. I can take a photo.
You're welcome to bring the family.
All right. This is my wife Laura and my son Rocco and daughter Amia.
Hello.
hello.
Great.
Very excited. Patient.
It's great.
So I'm gonna have you raise your hand. Thank you. You, Antonio Barletta, now solemnly swear that you will faithfully and impartially perform your duties as town administrator for the town of Manchester by the Sea to the best of your knowledge and ability, according to the bylaws of the town, the laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and the Constitution of the United States.
I do.
Okay.
Welcome.
Formally.
Hey, you come on anytime.
You might regret that, but.
Congratulations.
Thanks for coming.
Bye.
I was just gonna say, could we perhaps adjust the agenda? We have a lot of guests in the room who are, we're gonna be interviewing, and it
Right, can we just do
Yeah. alcohol.
alcohol, for the Manchester Yacht Club has applied for alteration to their, alcohol license to restrict the area where the licensed area. Are there any questions?
Can you open the public hearing?
Oh, sorry, yes. Open a public hearing, I'd like to open a public hearing for, consider the alcohol license for Manchester Yacht Club.
Ryan?
Second.
Brian had a,
Brian,
Brian has a
would you
motion.
like to open the public hearing?
Okay.
Brian, that's your call. Is that Brian's call?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a long one too.
Yeah, just chill. I move that the select board open a public hearing on the alcohol license amendment. Alteration of premises application, Manchester Yacht Club, 15 Tux Point Road. Street,
Sorry.
and of course, I'm the one that looks like a fool. Yeah, just about to say, thanks, Deb. This is why.
This testing is. Keith did it, okay? Second,
Let's see, I've already got.
oh, the second, okay, good.
All, Jeff,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Kathy.
Yes.
Anne says yes.
John, yes.
Okay. Is there any discussion?
I'm just curious why.
Huh, it had been.
And the applicant here?
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yes.
Why don't,
Yeah, curious.
I'm the Commodore of the Manchester Yacht Club, and we have the attorney with us that explain it.
Yes, so good evening, everyone. My name is Ryan Godsta. I'm the attorney representing King Yacht Club. By brief way of the description, the present liquor license currently covers the entirety of the property, including the interior of the premise as well as the floats and docks. The application tonight is with the intent to fine tune that the description of premise for more particularly, as well as to scale back two portions of the property that are to be removed. The rooftop deck, if you will, and the outdoor float and dock area. Purpose of that is really so members of the club who dock their boat will have the ability to drink their own beverages that they bring off of the boat onto the docks. But that will not, those beverages will not go into the interior of the premise, and vice versa. Drinks from inside will not go out to the docks. But other than carving out those two areas to be removed from the current description, no changes are proposed, and operationally, nothing will change at the club as well. That is basically the gist of it, but we're certainly happy to answer any questions anyone might have.
Understood.
Board ready to go?
We need to close the evidentiary portion of the
Right,
hearing, and
yes.
there's a reason why we shouldn't do that. I move that the select board close the evidentiary portion of the public hearing.
Second. Jeff,
Yes.
Brian.
Yes.
Kathy.
Yes.
Anne says yes, John.
Yes,
Okay.
I move the select board approve the alcohol license amendment to alter the premises to remove floats and upper deck from the existing premise description at the Manchester Yacht Club, 15 Tux Point Road, Manchester by the Sea.
Showstone Street.
Second.
Hmm.
John,
yes.
Anne says yes, Kathy.
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Jeff.
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
No.
you're very welcome.
I just want clarification.
In peace and mistake, okay? Sorry.
Okay.
Okay. Now you would like to move to the candidates.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's
We put out the wrong.
okay, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, I read this whole thing.
You know, front and back. Good.
Jesus. Season.
The first of the committee interviews is Donna first. Donna, would you like to make some remarks?
I have a thing small, but, Donna Fur is 8 Blossom Lane, I'm just saying that. Good evening, and thank you for considering me for a position on your Board of Health. As a nurse with over 30 years of experience and a mother of 4, health and well-being has always been central to my life. Serving on our local Board of Health would provide me with the opportunity to contribute to disease prevention and control and to help ensure a safe and healthy environment for our residents. I deeply respect the role of the Board of Health in enforcing vital public health regulations and promoting wellness. The board plays a key role in our town by establishing and upholding standards for housing, food service, and sanitation, often exceeding the minimum state requirements. As a local arm of both the Massachusetts Department of Public Health and the Department of Environmental Protection, the board's responsibilities must be taken seriously and approached with care and commitment. If appointed, I will approach this role with thoughtfulness and dedication. I'll be fully prepared for each meeting through research and review, and will actively engage in collaboration and with informed discussions. Most importantly, I will work to promote health initiatives that benefit our community. I have the time and energy to fully dedicate myself to the responsibilities of this position. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
I don't have any questions, just a comment that I'm glad that you raised your hand. You've certainly been active in the community. Your reputation precedes you in that regard. And your background for this position is great. So
I think it's a great fit for you, Donna. I agree with John's comments. Just one question for you. Do you feel comfortable understanding the role of a board versus other types of leadership positions like what Wendy Hansberry does as a town employee? Do you feel comfortable with that distinction?
Yes, absolutely. And we work collaboratively together and the majority will decide the outcome of, you know, what we discuss and whatnot. But yes, I've only been to a few Board of Health meetings. I've met with them. I've met with Wendy. I look forward to learning and because I've never necessarily been on the board, but.
Okay, and that's fine, you know, there's a first time for everything,
Yeah.
so I would encourage you to understand that distinction, boards or policy making.
Yep.
Right, as opposed to managing day-to-day activities, there's so, and new board members sometimes need that reminder, so.
Sure, I'm gonna need a lot.
No,
Yes.
but I really appreciate you standing up,
Thank you. Appreciate it.
stepping up your credentials, quite impressive.
Thank you.
Brian?
As John said, your reputation precedes you, and yet we're still talking to you.
I know. I appreciate it.
And you answered the question that we normally channel Bethany Jakes on. You do have the time,
I do.
okay? And your credentials speak for themselves, so
Thank you.
Nothing, thank you for your willingness to step up and take this on. We appreciate it.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you very much.
And I can say, having worked with you on a couple of things, that you work very well with people you disagree with when it's necessary. You're civil and persuasive.
Thank you, Ann. I appreciate that from you. Thank you.
So, ready for?
All right, I move that the board appoint Donna Burris as a member of the Board of Health for a term to expire on June 30th, 2027.
Second,
Jeff,
Yes.
Brian,
yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Anne says yes,
John
John.
says yes.
Okay, thank you very
Thanks,
much.
John.
And Donna, a kinder, gentler soul.
So much easier than last time.
Slow practice.
I know. Thank you. Thank you.
The next person is Matthew Genta for the Historic District Commission. Would you give us a word or two about why you want to do this and what you bring to the town?
Well, thank you for. Well, basically, John asked me if I would take over the position.
Yes.
And I'm on the board of the Manchester Museum, so it's a good, and I have been on Historic District Commission Board in the past in the town of Belmont. And oversaw, a rethinking of one of the main streets in town and earmarking with a group of MIT students what might be deemed historic in the future. I worked on a demolition delay bylaw that with the town that got passed. And my background in architecture and construction and remodeling old homes, I think I'm a good fit for the position.
Any questions, John?
You're a perfect fit.
You
You know.
You say that.
Just for those who don't know, I mean, he is filling the slot of the Historic District Commission, of which there must be a slot filled on the, the museum. One of the slots on the District Commission is for a museum representative and also an architect. And so he's got background in both, and I know that your experience, Matt, and your interest in what's going on in town here will serve us well on the commission for sure.
No question. I think your background is an excellent fit for what we're looking for. Thank you for setting up.
Right?
Nothing. I'm good.
Sounds like you're gonna be a good fit, so thank you.
Thank
you.
I move the select board appoint Matthew Genta as the Manchester by the Sea Museum representative, member of the Historic District Commission for a term to begin July 1st, 2025 and expire on June 30th, 2028.
Second.
Further discussion? Jeff,
Yes.
Brian.
Yes.
Kathy.
Yes.
Anne says yes, and
John
John.
says yes.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And the next applicant is Molly Gavin.
Hi, I'm Molly Gavin, and I would like to volunteer for the Council on Aging Board. My family has lived most of us were born and raised in town. My grandparents were both volunteers in town. My mother and father were volunteers as assessors. My sister was on the Board of Health. And this is my first venture into volunteering for the town. I am surrounded with seniors. I belong to the Golden Ages. I belong to the Friends of the Council on Aging, and I'm vice president of the Manchester Women's Club. I previously, before I retired, I worked for 27 years at Salem Hospital in the surgical services, which doesn't have a lot to do with older people, but it does show that I get along and work well with others. And I think that's really a big point. I live at the Plains, so I see people and I talk to people that are my age all the time. And I hear what they're saying. I'm looking forward to speaking with more people about what they would like to see the seniors do in town. We're one of the rising demographics in town. I think we're up to 32% of the town are over the age of 60. So there's really a need for the Council on Aging to really listen to the seniors in town. And that's why I'm volunteering.
Great.
John?
Yeah, no, Holly, thanks for raising your hand. You are indeed surrounded by seniors all day, every day. It sounds like there's no question. Do you know the other members of the COA? I assume you probably do because.
Jane Matrano is my husband's cousin.
Okay, all right. And I know that there is vacancy or two, I think, on the COA. You're filling one of them for sure. So, or we're hopeful that's the case. But thanks for raising your hand, and we think you'll be a great asset because you're listening to your peer group, so to speak, every day.
Sounds like you're already well on your way to being involved, so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brian?
No, I think that I appreciate you stepping up. I think, you're absolutely right. Our demographic is shifting or has already shifted. So the seniors need bigger responses.
Yeah, Dave, I think you're well qualified and we're just kind of making this official. You're already engaged. So thank you very much for volunteering.
Me?
Yep.
I move that the board appoint Holly Gavin as a member of the Council on Aging for a term to expire on June 30th, 2028.
John?
Yes.
Anne says yes.
Yeah.
Kathy? Brian?
Yes.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Unanimous again.
Congratulations. Both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
We have Andrea and Jen here, if you wanted to go to the bond participation.
Sure.
Any? Got your pens warmed up? Need to.
This is the 32-page insert in.
These are just the signature pages.
Oh,
So
okay.
easy. All you gotta do is, I think I'll start here, you sign, goes along, and it'll end with that. So you can save it for me.
Now let's take the vote first.
Yeah, take a
Oh,
vote
sorry, yeah,
first.
you gotta read.
Yeah.
Decided yet.
So I don't know, if you want to just give a quick.
Yeah.
Overview of what we're doing here.
Oh, yes, you're signing.
4.1 million, keep the page in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's your spending portion. Matter of minutes. These are all the closing documents for the bond anticipation note, worth 1 million. For the next year, and then I think we'll be back within a year for the next part of what was already approved at last 2024.
So we're gonna spend we're gonna spend 4.1 million in a year here?
Yeah, we're
I've
half,
already.
Yeah.
we're already halfway there.
Well, yeah, we have spent most, have
Okay, all right, so
already, so we
gotta
need the
replenish
cash.
cash.
Okay.
So this is for the sewer and water.
The sewer and, yes, sewer treatment stuff that's been going on for quite a few months.
Yeah,
This is the water.
this is the 4.1 water.
Oh, the
Sewer
water.
gonna be, is being worked on, but that'll be mainly spent during FY 26.
And then next year,
And then
we're
so
back
next-
to repair.
Paying ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah, 2 vans probably for 1 bond.
Yes.
That was my question is, you're going to do a series of bans and then a single bond for the 7 million or whatever it is that comes out to be.
Yes. Thanks, right now it's just planned on the 2 vans.
Yes.
Is there any sense of where the market is going? Sorry.
I mean, I was very pleased to get this rate.
Oh, that,
Yeah.
your rate is great.
I think it's a good reflection on Manchester that we come across as a safe bet in a pretty uncertain moment. So that bodes well for us, but no, I'm not gonna fork.
Okay. So you assume there's no reason to go directly to a bond now.
Yeah, I don't think so, no.
No, and the higher the bond amount too, like that's more
More
market
attractive.
and this is considered like a small,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
oh, it's millions of
This is
dollars,
pretty small.
considered small,
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
If we can like just roll it over and then also one part of the plan is, we have the capital assessment for the water. We want to use some of that next year to pay down some of this ban before we roll it over again, so that'll save us in interest costs as well. Okay. We'll do ban.
Unless the numbers go up, in which case you'll keep it.
No, the whole plan was to.
It's rolling no
Roll it
matter
down, roll
what.
it down, so,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
Less borrow, less pay,
Yeah.
sure.
Okay.
But there were a lot of documents, and so these are just the signature pages.
Because those documents
Yes.
put me to sleep. Every
Yeah,
night.
I know,
For a week.
I know. People who, that's
Didn't
their
need
job.
melatonin.
Pretty persistent.
You want sleep comings instead.
That's a good idea. Anyway, is there further discussion?
My motion?
Yes.
I move that the select board adopt the vote prepared by bond counsel and print before the board in connection with the sale of $4.1 million in general obligation bonds, anticipation notes of the town and sign related closing documents.
Second.
Further discussion? Ryan,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Kathleen? Yes. Anne says yes.
John,
John
yes?
says yes. Okay, now you can start passing it around.
Okay. One. That's so cute.
The clerk one.
Yeah,
Pass them down.
Just like first aid.
yeah, you'll see repetition is too. Okay.
Am I like 4 or 5 pages?
That's it.
1 million. Done. We feel rich.
Practice all day.
I gotta sign something, we gotta, no one ever asked for my signature. Fine, I think that's it.
Wonderful, thank you, guys.
That's nice and easy.
It was. Can you stay for the next one?
Yeah, if you don't mind just staying for this next topic.
It's all one of the,
The
transfers.
retiree health.
Oh, yeah, yeah, questions on that?
Right. Greg, would you like to explain generally what we're doing?
Sure, so, the town provides health insurance coverage for both active employees and for retirees. Part of general law that was adopted many decades ago. And for the active employees, we have been slowly shifting percentages. The town paying a little bit less percentage and employees picking up a little more. We have not done that for retirees. It has really stayed at the same 75-25 for a long time.
Although those that retired at 70-30, because now that's been in
Right.
place. For we actually had people retiring at the 70-30 rate. They stay at 70-30 as retirees, but
Right.
all the grandfathered people, yeah, hold steady at 75-25.
So the suggestion is that you should move off of those who are still at that 75-25 split and move to 70-30 to be in line with all the other regular staff and so that they don't actually have a lower percentage when
They're retired
they retire.
and their income goes down and.
So, so that's part one, is for retirees who are Medicare eligible, that they would go to that 70-30 split. And then we do have employees who retire before they're 65. And if they do, they stay on the active plan. And we have been paying that 70-30 split or.
Yeah,
Yeah,
whatever they
most-
retire at, they'll stay at.
Right. And so the recommendation is, for those folks in that situation, that we really shouldn't be paying that much for health insurance. So we really should go to the minimum, which is 50-50. And so that's, again, that's the second part of the proposal, is that you would, again, and the proposal here is to give people a year's notice. Give them plenty of time to understand what's coming down the pike. And time to adjust as needed or to make different decisions if they choose. So implement this starting a year from now, July of 26.
Actually, so, the bulk of retirees are on the MedX plan, right? And that's a calendar year run type of thing.
Yeah,
So, and I agree, a year would be a good notice amount, particularly for the ones that retired 20-30 years ago. And, you know, they just experienced a very big increase this year, Medicare recipients, the MedX plan, up about 20%. It's the highest increase since I've been here. It's the first big one. So waiting 6 months and then in January, maybe saying, hey, come next year at this time, contribution will split into 70. Because it wouldn't really work to do it on a fiscal anyway. It's mid-year for the bulk of the retirees, but it gives them plenty of time to look around and find another plan if they want. Gives them an entire open enrollment period or other plans outside. So that January of 2027 would probably be the best rollout for the contribution level change for Medicare at this point, unless you want to do it in 6 months, which I think is, they might not have time to get, you know, an open enrollment to look around for another plan in case they want to. Plus, they just had that huge increase. So to add on top of that, this gives them a year and a half to get used to that increase before absorbing the next one. Well,
So retirees have a choice of Medicare or MedX if they're
no,
over
I'm sorry.
65.
They, once Medicare eligible, they have to go Medicare.
They go Medicare.
MedX is a supplement plan offered by the town,
Well, that's a supplement plan.
offered by the town.
Okay, for retirees over 65.
Yeah.
Goes beyond that.
Yes, they
Okay,
have
all right. So it's a supplemental, it's not,
And that's all that the town contributes to, obviously none of the Medicare or anything like that, just the supplement.
and that's an option.
Yeah.
I don't know what percentage of,
There are a lot of plans out there, a lot of supplement plans in the
yeah,
in the
okay.
markets, yeah. So they don't have to go with the towns. But
Why 50-50 for the early retirees?
so it's really because of the expense of the.
Oh, I know that's a really expensive.
So
Yeah.
it's so,
it's a lot.
it's not something we like to encourage people to do.
Retire early.
But
We, I thought we had positions from which your retirement was required.
Safety, public safety for one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's mostly what you'll see people retiring. Most of the retirees with active plans are public safety, yeah, because they can retire a little earlier.
And when they're retired, that MedX plan is not a supplemental plan, because if they're retiring before 65, they need,
They can't get the
They can't
medicines,
get the
exactly. They have to stay on the active HMO plans, the regular.
right, they said staying on a full healthcare plan.
Yeah, they're staying right on the full
Okay.
healthcare.
So this would not apply to them. This med exchange,
The
proposed
med
med exchange.
exchange
We don't have
doesn't,
the medic.
but,
That's what I'm saying.
but their contribution rate goes from 70-30 or 65-35 to 50-50.
Whatever the town's plan is,
Yes, from from 75 to
50-50.
50-50
50-50.
for the public safety.
What's,
It would.
I thought that confused me. I thought you said the 50-50 was only for the early retirees who were on.
Okay, I think I know what Greg's intending here. He wants to go 70-30 across the board for all medics. That's the bulk of retirees, right? Are over
Mhm.
65 and on a Medicare supplement plan. They are currently the ones grandfathered at 75-25. So, and some of them have been around for decades and there's, not going anywhere. So it's about changing that to 70-30. However, what we call active plans are people who retire before the age of 65 and aren't Medicare eligible, so they have to retire with their HMO or their
Right.
whatever very expensive plan. I think you're suggesting that anybody who retires on an active plan, it's a 50-50 contribution rate. Anybody who is Medicare eligible, they'll be on the 70-30 split with the Medicare supplement.
how many people would that affect right now?
Active plans?
Yeah.
Have to do the numbers, I would say, probably the same dozen.
I think it would make sense for us to get a little more information and to have it clear in writing what it is you're asking us to approve. Because some of the nuances you're describing here were not clear to me, based on the package that we received.
Yeah, I have to.
I'm a tad confused and concerned that public safety
Yeah.
who have to retire.
Right.
Okay, are gonna be penalized because they have to retire.
That doesn't.
And that's one.
What happens with somebody who gets hurt on the job or something like that?
You can retire, you don't have
Have
to
to.
retire. You can work till
Yeah.
65.
They're
yeah.
eligible.
The question was asked, maybe you didn't hear it. The question was asked, are some of our public safety professionals required to retire at a certain age? Required.
Before 65,
Not before 65.
Okay, so
Yeah,
not before
nobody.
65. So this is somebody who, in theory, can afford to retire early,
Yes.
and you're suggesting that they could afford to pay more.
Correct.
Okay,
It's
so,
a choice. It's not being
Right.
forced upon.
right,
them.
it's not a force.
That was my
Okay.
concern.
So, and I heard the same thing you did, so I just think, so that's why I'm asking for something laid out in writing, just a one pager. What are we, a little chart here, because I think I missed that nuance. Some of the information you're describing here is a little bit,
Right, we didn't go into the details of the public safety.
no.
Yeah, and that is a concern.
yeah, and how many people does this affect? So I like your suggestion, giving them a year and a half, what's the cutover period? Would it be the same for everybody or just, I'm thinking of a table. I want a table, I love my charts. I want a table. Okay.
Do you want
this
that
is-
pie or do you want a graph?
No, just a table chart, here's what the way it is now, here's what we're looking to change. Here's how many people it would affect,
Yeah.
the effective date.
Yep.
That would just make it super easy to.
Yep.
I've got it, but what's the definition of active? What's the definition of active plan? In other words, the
Active
plan that the town offers at the moment,
Just to
Intended for.
current employees.
Yeah.
right?
We call it active because active employees, meaning you're actively employed, not retired. Typically,
Is it
that's
like-
the way it goes.
But it
right?
says active plan, so that's an
That means
active.
the HMO, the one.
Whatever the HMO or the,
Whatever
the plan is that's enforced. And if somebody retires before 65, the suggestion here is that's a 50-50 split if they stay on that plan.
Yes.
Now, if they say, I get a better deal elsewhere, all bets are off and they're paying 100%. It's their problem. We're not.
Or they might have a spouse who can cover them.
Correct.
It's like,
Fine.
oh,
Or
The
the other side of it is they may have a spouse that's dependent on it.
right, so that's why giving people a year and a half is, I
That's
like
a
that
good idea.
suggestion because they have plenty of time to research plans. If, in theory, if someone is retiring before 65 or 67, whatever their date is, they can afford to do so. So, but this would change their math a little bit, and you want to give them enough time before they put in their
And
paper.
often if the plan is attractive and they can afford it, they won't bother to consider. Nowadays, you know, typically retired couples also have two social securities, two options, you know, it's no longer just the single worker in the household, so everybody's relying on the same plan, so it's kind of to incentivize them to look around and say, would we do better here or there, you know?
What happens to somebody who has to retire for medical reasons?
So if they're medical reason, they may be on Medicaid, right? So if they're on Medicaid, then they could have the medics.
Medication disability.
No, I mean, if you have medical issues, you're still working,
Disability.
Right.
there's disability.
Social security disability.
It's just-
Medicaid is a different thing.
Yeah.
That's, yeah.
Yeah, it's Medicare disability.
Right, well, maybe they have a medical condition, but it's not enough to be fully disabled, they just can't
Yeah, so
continue in the role that they had.
But that's not a retirement issue, that's a disability issue. Short-term disability versus long-term disability. Yeah, that's, you know, how you handle those.
Well, down the road, though, they would. Well, I guess.
Well, I mean, today you could have the same issue, you know, someone at 59 has a medical issue and they can't wait till 65 or whatever, you know, that's a disability issue. So,
But because, correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding was that if you had that kind of a qualified disability, you can start Medicare earlier.
Yes, you can.
So
People on
that-
disability.
Right, so if you have a disability, you could go on Medicare before you're 65. And then you could have, and then you're just on the medics. Once you have your Medicare card, then.
You need a
Jan can
Medicare
put you on
card.
medics.
The medics,
So
your
where is
supplemental,
it from Medics, the Medicare.
Yes.
and they're in one of the other bulleted points.
Right.
Yeah. They're just not 65. Okay,
yeah, so the 50-50 is only for those people who 50-50 proposal is only for those people who choose to
Elect.
retire early in theory because they can afford to do so. And so if they can afford to retire early, we are suggesting they pay a little more. So that's not a burden on
And the
the.
thoughtful consideration that typically a position that retired is gonna be filled and the town may be paying two family plans
Right.
now for the one
Right,
position, so.
Yep.
Okay.
I can get you more info if you want
How long
some.
will it take you to pull together that information?
So I have to admit, Kathy, I'm sorry, I'm not good with tables. I'm a talker. I know all this in and out.
need
I
to
can
see
give
something
dates
in
and
writing,
pounds
yeah.
and people. If I just had my invoices in front of me, we could talk numbers.
Yeah,
As
I think
to
it's still helpful though to have something
retirees on the
in
map.
writing with the numbers of people impact. So categorize, you know, here's what you want, change number one, here's how many people it affects, and here's the savings to the town, you
Yeah,
know.
and
just-
I'd also like to know how many people we have in the active, retired active who are a family plan.
Yep, sure, I can get that easily. And I mean, somebody might have 8 years left on that plan, somebody might have 8 months, you know, just because they're retired on
They
the
are,
plan,
yeah.
you don't know for how long. You have options if you want to do a going forward type of thing, which I hope it's an even more calculation, but again, the more warning people get to this, so maybe you're thinking of retiring the next year, then you had a year to think about it and you figure that out, you know. I can get those numbers, though, how many it would impact and who's on what. Sure.
Okay.
yes.
Can you get it by?
And she can make the table. She can make a pretty
Oh,
table.
she's a table person.
I love it, so. Yeah,
And
yeah.
can you get
I'd be
it to us
booked.
for our next
Sorry,
meeting?
what?
Can you get that to us for our next meeting?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. No
That'll give.
Wait, when is that? I should say that. I should have that. first.
7.
July 7th.
July 7th.
Sure. We
Yeah.
give you an extra week
Okay,
because they were that kind of people.
sure. I mean, I might just send it off way before then. Okay. Is that good? Any other questions? This stuff is, yeah, been doing this a long time.
Okay,
I would welcome the 70-30 because there's a lot of contribution levels and I just think it's consistent. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, they-
an incremental thing. You don't want to jump from 25% to 50, you know, for a retired Medicare person. You know, 20,
Right.
so.
Well, the bill for the MedX is a lot less than the bill for the full active
Certainly is.
family plan.
And the plan is good, so, you know, they like it, and I'm sure even with the 5% contribution level increase, it would still be a really attractive plan. With Blue Cross nationwide plan, everybody's very happy with it. Never heard one person complain about the medics, so they'll pay. All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Next on our agenda are several end of year transfers. Are there any, has everyone reviewed them, and are there any that we have questions about?
I got some questions. One of them, well, there's a general question. First of all, there's a lot of money coming out of what, health insurance? You're shifting out of health insurance?
Yeah.
To cover other things? How come? What's going on with health insurance? Why have you got all that money left over there?
Usually have a cushion of about 3 to 4 plans.
Yeah.
I believe this is we needed 2 plans, and now this is the only 2 plans. I'm using it for some money there.
Okay, I mean, that's kind of expected. Usually that happens every year. I mean, I can't remember past years. So a lot of times that's a source of money.
It is, and we've dialed it in a bit, so it's a lot less of a cushion.
Okay, couple of individual questions. Parking ticket processing, $26,000. We receive revenue from the parking sticks. I understand that. However, we must pay from an appropriation to the vendor for use of the sticks and related program. I didn't know that there was any other cost to us other than we were splitting the money.
Right.
Isn't that how we're splitting it?
It is how we're splitting it. So the way it works, like they'll send us money, and then whatever the minimum fee it is, we have to send that back out.
Right, run that by me again. I'm not following.
It's almost like the ambulance, like, they send out the bill, they collect the money, they send it to us, but then we have to pay the vendor at their fee of collecting that money.
So
Not
now,
like they don't net it.
so it's like $100 and they send us $40. And then we gotta send
No,
them
they
back.
send us 100.
They send us 100.
We gotta send
And
them
then we
this-
have to send them.
Oh,
60.
so they get the 100, they send all of it to us.
Yeah.
Okay,
They don't play with that money.
Yeah, they send all of our money, we gotta pay them.
well disguised. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but
So-
right now that those numbers are working out, I guess.
Yeah, we do want to make sure that they're adhering to the agreement that we had with them. Not charging us the minimum during the non-use months. That's something that I think that the chief is gonna follow up on to make sure that that's the case.
But the intended use of these sticks is to turn the parking spots over. Was that the?
Well,
But two
That's
uses. One is to turn them over, the other is to the fire hydrant, people not parking too close to it.
Yeah.
I thought there was one category of the sticks that should be used year round, because no one should be blocking a fire hydrant, no matter what time.
I don't know why they put that doesn't, I wouldn't think that would pay for them. Put it next to a fire hydrant.
No, I mean, or the so many feet from the crosswalk and, those should be active year round. Why wouldn't we?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a detail that we have to double
I
check.
think you need to double check that because
Okay.
we don't wanna.
well,
that's year round.
I assume at some point down the road, there might be kind of some sort of accounting. We will ask for, I think, just to
Yes.
say, because right now they're still, they're well into the middle of the experiment.
Right.
To see what the school.
Beyond experiment, we've expanded.
So, yeah, so I mean, right now, the trend looks good. Second question, police expenses, additional expenses for vehicle repairs, ammunition costs. We're running out of ammo. What's going on here? What are they,
Well, the ammo prices have increased significantly that we weren't expecting
was this for target rangers? They're not
for
shooting?
training.
Right, this is.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, and they have more required state trainings
Okay.
for ammunition, so that was like a kind of double whammy
All right.
last year for that.
The other factor was he's reduced the amount of time other departments use our firing range. And they used to give us ammo in exchange for using our range. So,
So that's, okay,
so people, we're getting complaints about the noise at the firing range, so he has cut back on
oh,
the use.
And
We're not
therefore our
getting as
income.
much as, we're not getting,
The firearms.
we gotta buy our own ammo.
correct.
And the other question I had was the town report printing.
Yeah, that's a good discussion to have.
Should we start that now?
Yeah, I think we should start that discussion.
Did we discuss this once?
$10,000
Yeah, we did
bucks.
discuss this one.
And I don't know, that printers has gone from what, 10,000 copies down to 5,000, down to 2,500 this year, or?
Just for the FinCom report, but down to 400.
400.
For the annual
That one
report.
was fine. It's,
It's,
yeah.
it's the annual report
It's
that's
the-
killing us. That's an expensive little booklet.
Yes, that's the colored book.
Yes, the colored book.
Yes, I have a
And
copy here.
You know, staff recommendation would be to
Black and white.
go digital.
Digital.
This thing,
Yes,
was this like $20 a copy or something?
I haven't done the math for copy.
I mean, it's a lot.
It's a lot,
Yeah. it's
Have
on
you
the
gone out for bid?
yes.
Same.
I mean, toner's expensive, I know.
I was just trying to do the math here and I didn't like the numbers I was coming up with on a per copy basis.
I can show you the bill, John.
Oh, I believe it.
Yeah.
So, should we revisit this in a couple of months?
Yeah,
I think we probably ought to pay the bill.
Oh, we got to pay the bill.
we're paying the bill.
No, we're
Uh,
going forward. I think we
Maybe
should-
put this on the agenda item or something.
What are other towns doing?
A lot of them are digital.
They're
A
all-
lot of.
A lot of them digital.
Yeah.
A
Those are the
simpler,
costs.
a simpler format, lot just use the 8.5 by 11, which is less expensive. Not doing color, they're not doing pictures, you know, so.
If we put it on digital, we can make it as pretty and colorful as we want and just stick it on the
I will
website.
tell you,
That was the Staples.
Yeah.
I went to a town a few months or so, a town where I used to live. And I said, I just wanted to see their report. They went to the printer and printed out a 75-page report. He said, "Well, you know, I'm sitting there, they're just cranking it out because they're only gonna have to do that 10 times. I'm one of those guys. And everything else was digital. That was it.
With QR codes and.
I think I like
So
that.
we can discuss this when we're. in the-
Yeah, we had talked about that with Tony.
Let's talk about this in October.
October.
And you put that down there on the,
That thing there.
I have it written.
perfect. Those are all the ones I have.
Kathy?
The only one I had a question on was the police overtime. So what was the scoop on that? What's kind of driving that?
That was the additional trainings, state mandated trainings, to be in compliance with accreditation and posts and all of that.
For the harbor master? Or just,
So how are we separate?
okay,
That was separate.
so for new police officers or just, we forgot to plan or?
We didn't know originally about the additional trainings.
So post increase the amount of
Okay.
required hours per officer.
Post made changes?
Post is-
Yeah, I know, they made changes,
Well, they didn't. They
the
didn't,
post came out
they
in twenty
articulated
twenty-one, right?
they articulated their demands.
Okay, so we're just understanding what the requirement was all along. Okay, all right.
Yeah, the couple, you know, an officer on medical leave, another on.
Right.
Maternal leave.
Right, understand. I just, like I said, that seems to be more of a planning issue here, though, so we just, whatever the lesson learned is, we should take that into account.
And we did for FY 26.
I'm just concerned about this line item, about selecting salaries. I don't remember getting one.
I think that's why it's zero now.
There's a transfer going there.
I'm not higher math.
Okay. Ryan, are you prepared to make a motion or?
Oh, is that my turn? I'm sorry. Yeah, I'll make that motion as soon as I find it.
I might have one more question.
Okay.
Oh, you're gonna transfer, I got, okay.
And really, it's kind of at the end. We're in the black this year, I assume?
Yes, overall, yes.
Okay, so I didn't quite understand.
Confidently.
Yes.
Okay.
We are in the black, but we transferred $150,000 out of our fund
Transfer.
reserve, of which is what, like $3.5, $4 million?
No, these are not coming out of the.
It's not coming out of the reserves. Where's it coming from?
So there's two different reserves. We have an annual operating finance committee reserve
Yeah.
fund, which is $150,000 that we voted for FY 25.
Okay,
And then we also have our other reserves that include free cash and stabilization that
that's,
we vote from for town meeting for capital and other things like that. So there's,
This,
I know they're
this,
both called the same thing.
yeah, this is something that's explicitly given to the finance committee to
To
handle
work with.
overruns.
Yes.
Yes.
Unexpected occurrences.
And it's not expected to be carried over from year to year.
And you used it all.
We generally use it.
Okay,
I mean, frankly, we tap it first before we start shifting dollars from one account to another.
but,
Because
but,
those dollars just flow back, well, they both flow back into free fund balance, but
yeah,
it's the general practice.
but we're on trend. I mean, there's only a couple of weeks left and that'll be in the black.
This is anticipating what we think, our
Understood.
best guess is over the next 2 weeks here.
I yield to Brian.
All right, I move that the select board approve the interdepartmental transfers and reserve fund request as presented.
Second. Thank you, Nick, you seconded. Further discussion? Jeff,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Anne says yes.
John, yes.
Okay. I assume you have a stack of paper for me.
Yes.
Okay.
You do.
I will stay after school and sign those.
I appreciate that. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry there's so many.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Water.
Okay. Right. Wendy is here. Greg, do you want to start the discussion with who does the
Well, sure. So as I've explained in the memo, and I think you're getting up to speed, we've had a situation with the Gates. Katrina is here this evening. And this started, I guess, in earnest about a year ago with some concerns about the roof. A permit was applied for to do some roof repairs, but it was never acted upon. And then this past fall, concerns were brought to the attention of the health agent. And she reached out to the Gates to try to talk to them about the concerns. At that time, it was came to the understanding that the property does not have running water, which is sort of a pretty bright line in terms of state law. Any home that is occupied needs to have running water, cold water, and hot water functioning for it to be a habitable home. And so the Board of Health instituted request to the Gates to make those improvements. That was in November and December. I believe, if I have my timeline right, the Gates agreed to start those improvements and would share that information with the board to get contractors lined up and ready to do that work. Come March, nothing had changed that we understood. And so the board again engaged with the Gates and held a formal meeting with the Gates and voted to give them 1 month to again show progress, meaning the board wanted to see contractor brought on board so that the work would be undertaken. Again, nothing happened. Nothing was shown to the board that was the case. And then the board had another hearing with Katrina present, and they voted at that meeting that they needed to take it to court. And so court hearing was held. The judge gave another 30 days to make the improvements. That 30 days ended June 9th. And again, no progress as far as we are aware of. So that brings us to where we are today. Again, there's a real desire to bring the house up to code so that the Gates can live there properly, in comfort and according to state law. So the state laws are pretty explicit and straightforward, particularly when it comes to the running water. And so the judge at the original hearing back in May suggested that if no progress was made by June 9th, that he would recommend that the case proceed to receivership. And so what that would mean was that the town would go back to the judge and say, yes, we would request that the property be placed under receivership. The judge would assign a receiver. A receiver is a person whose job it is to make sure that work gets done on a piece of property to bring it up to code. So the receiver would actually hire the contractor, pay for the contractor, and have that work completed. Once that is done, a bill would be given to the property owner. In this case, the Gateses would get a bill from the receiver paying for the work of the contractor, plus the receiver has a fee as well. So in addition to the fee for the contractors, there would be a fee to pay to the receiver. And if the property owner makes that payment, then all is good. They continue to live in the property. The property has no liens. It's theirs free and clear, and they can live in the property that's now up to code. If the property owner were not to pay for the receiver's fees, for the contractor work on the receiver fee, then the receiver does have the option of putting the house on the market, collecting his fees, both for the contractor himself and giving the balance of the proceeds to the owner. Obviously, the house would no longer be in their name. So not a desired outcome by any means. So the process of going to receivership and having that signed and ordered by a judge is probably a 2.5, 3 week period. From the time you say, let's continue to that level. So that would give the Gateses another 3 weeks to come into compliance, or at least to get the ball rolling in that direction. And if there was evidence of a contractor on board making the necessary improvements, then we wouldn't. We would tell the judge not to proceed with the receivership.
Yes. My first question is the time between I sign a contract with a contractor and the time they show up tends to be more than 3 weeks.
Right, so I think the board was comfortable with having a signed contract. That was signs of good progress, and that shows a very good faith effort on the owners to correct it.
I assume that turning the water on is also.
Doesn't require a contract.
Right, that needs to be part of the work. Yes. Yeah, so that's where it is. We have Wendy Hansberry, who's our health agent. She's online. She can answer additional questions. She knows the details of that timeline that I briefly went over in better detail than me. So if you have specific questions about that, certainly Wendy could help. And obviously the Gateses are here as well, so they can answer questions.
So I have a question. What is our responsibility as the select board versus the Board of Health on this?
So this is a Board of Health matter, but you control the purse strings. So when there's going to court, you ultimately have the say as to whether or not to proceed with court proceedings. So that's your role.
So that's what we're voting on, or we're deciding.
Yeah, so your authorization to proceed with, court expenses, you have to continue to pay legal town counsel to process this and appear before the judge. And so there's expenses obviously involved.
My next question is there a hardship here? Why this hasn't happened, or?
Well, so I certainly think the Gates can speak to that.
Give us your name.
My name is Michael Gates. I live at 31 School Street, which is across the street from 2 Dozen Avenue. That is my parents' house.
Mhm.
I live across the street. There are several mischaracterizations that have continued throughout this. One is that no one has been contacted. There has been a contractor. There is a signed contract that he has been spoken with, and he came and did the roof on my house just a few weeks ago. And the same contractor is also the one who is in talks to do goes beyond last year to do their home as well. So the idea that no one has been contacted to do the work is incorrect and has been pointed out several times. But there is no signed contract, so that is.
That's the evidence that they're looking for. Yeah.
Anyway, the contract for my roof is done. There will be for their home as well, once they determine the full extent, because my mother also has election addition and several other things, so it's not just the their roof. Another clarification, this is to do with the water specifically. This is what the judge on May 9th his adjudication was that to reconnect the water within 30-day periods. So that is accurate. In the course of that time, my father on 14th of May ended up going to the emergency room for an eye condition. So our lives and working on. So we've had some issues going on at the same time. So he was in the hospital for a week, and then he was in rehabilitation for another week. So I was, my parents, neither of them currently have a car or drive. My dad's 91. And so I've been shuttling them back and forth to hospitals and rehabs. And so we've had a lot of things going on. In the meantime, I'm also myself been speaking with lawyers to try and figure out what's going on. Like, because I didn't know exactly it was the 9th to the 9th, or from the day that the filing was received, because even though the court case was on the 9th, the notification of the verdict was received about a week later. So I myself have gone to Salem Court to ask about this and get clarification for myself. Like, is it on the 9th to the 9th? Or is it the 15th to the 15th when we received the notification? During the course of the last month, I have been in contact with a plumber. He's been communicating with me for about 3 weeks now. The reason the water was off my parents' house initially was because pipes had frozen one winter. And there were leaks in the system because of that. So the water was shut off. The plumber who I've been in communication was aware of this. Access into the basement has been very difficult. So we have located 3 of the locations that need to be addressed for the frozen pipes, but the plumber also needs to get access to a crawl space that's under the kitchen. And so during the course of the last several weeks, I've been slowly clearing out the basement so that the plumber can get full access to all the piping within the house, so that he doesn't just turn on the flood waters basically and flood the house again. So that's sort of the practical things of what's been going on within the last couple of weeks to address this issue. I've gone back to Salem Courthouse myself to ask about this, and they said that because I wasn't quite sure how this proceeds with court filings and everything else. I'm aware of something called an injunction where you can stop a court proceeding. So I asked, is that what we need to do, or what we should? She said the person who I spoke with was I don't have the name offhand, but she told me that no, you wouldn't need to file an injunction. You could just file for a motion to delay, but you don't actually file for the motion to delay until there's another court case date. And currently there is no future court date. So you wouldn't be able to file the motion for delay until you have a future court date. So I was like, okay. And she said, well, just, keep track of what you have been doing and present that so that they know you've been making a good faith effort to resolve the issue. So that's what I've been doing. I've been contacting the plumber. There's a plumber who will be addressing the situation. But first, he needs full clear access to all of the basement. And that's what I've been working on myself, trying to get them. There's about 2/3 of it that's accessible. There's 1/3 that's still to go. Before he can get into the crawl space. My parents' house was built in the 1700s, and so there is no full basement, especially under the kitchen. It's quite literally a crawl space that you have to get into. So the plumber just needs me to clear more areas for him to get to access the full plumbing of the house to address the connection of the water. So that's just some of the clarifications of some of the misconceptions that were presented. My mother has other things to talk about. Not that.
I also have some questions.
You.
So, okay, so it's my understanding that these actions are requested because there is an impression that somebody is living in the house. Okay, so, because if there's a house that's, not in great shape or, in progress of repairs and no one's living there and the water shut off, who cares, right? The linchpin here is somebody living in the house. So I would like to know if someone is living in the house, and if no, where are they living? Because
Yeah.
it seems to be some disconnect there as to. If I can just finish my comment, yes, thank you. Yeah, so to me, that's the linchpin here, is there evidence that somebody is living in the house? Because without that, I think the whole thing falls apart, so.
Yes.
My name is Katarina Gates and we're the owners of Route 2 Desmond. When we first we went from the beginning, how the water was shut off and the roof we knew needed to be fixed on the front, the back side of the roof was a problem. The roof started having a problem after we rebuilt the chimney from the roof line up, and we didn't know that the person who did the chimney stepped in the wood edge of the thing and didn't tell us. Just walked away, got his money, and eventually with the winter coming, we realized there was some problem on the roof and we found out where actually, and that's where all the problems started. and everything
The
became-
question
But
is
that's
not
it.
the roof. The question is,
When-
where are you living?
So now, when we were confronted with this, you see, first we started, the water was off, because we don't buy water to drink, we buy water to drink anyway. So we have the house across the street, and we felt we needed.
Whether you drink town water or
No,
not
no,
is
but
not
I mean,
relevant.
we were planning.
What is
We live
required,
at Michael's house, yes, 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, 2 with baths, 1 with shower. They said, where are you gonna go take a shower? We have been there since 3 years ago doing that, but we were sleeping in our home. That's the only thing we're doing. They said, you
Are you
cannot sleep in your
Sleeping
home.
in the house is habiting the house.
It's not in the house because we have been leaving the light on, even though we're 4 or 5 months away every year. The light in the kitchen has been on in the hallway all year round, day and night.
are you sleeping in
At
the
his
house?
house on a bench, not bench, on a couch that is a double couch and opens up. We don't sleep in our house. And the neighbors who talk to them, I wonder who are these neighbors who have never come home ever in our home to know what we're doing or when we're there, or what we're doing. And I was reading in the filings that witnesses said we were living in the house. Even the first report that was done about we have blocked our entrance to our home. It was not even corrected because the first time I heard that, when we were approached for the first time, October 17th, that was the first.
We're
time that we heard
really
about
not terribly involved with access to the house right at the moment.
it. Yes,
You
but
have
this
said,
was not even corrected ever, that it was only for overnight. Michael had put some items on the front steps until he was.
the two questions in front of us right now are the roof
Yes.
and getting the
Now, the
water.
roof, we contacted.
Actually, there are 3
last
questions.
fall.
Are you living there? Are you sleeping there?
Yes, he was sleeping at his place, in the library.
So
He
we're-
has a double couch that turns into a double bed.
Yes. Could you let Michael answer?
I'm sorry.
So, we're technically all living in the house I live in. However, their clothes and things are in their house and,
I'll have to go to bed.
and I'm in and out of their house all the time, usually at very strange hours because I do things at night a lot of times. So I'm in and out of their house all the time, trying to empty the basement on my time.
Mhm.
So I've rented a storage unit that I've been transferring their things into at the Brady storage facility and, so there are people in and out of the house all the time. It's not that the house has been abandoned and left. So I don't,
But we always kept the light on anyway.
I understand some people that might be considered habitation, but,
I won't
when
leave
we
it
had the
alone.
first, so I was at the first meeting and it was in the, I don't know if it was the same board, but it was.
No, it was Board of Health.
And,
the impression they get, they were not going to allow us to go in and out of the house at all. Like, we were just supposed to vacate the house and never access it. It was very confusing. Because I was like, well, how are we going to address any of these issues if I can't even go in the house, which was, I don't know if this is some of the confusion. But I'm in there several times a day, usually in odd hours, myself.
Another clarifying question I
Yeah.
have, so I understand the issue of rent, so. In the documentation we provided, and was not clear to me what the exact issues were that had to be addressed for habitability. So I sent an email to Wendy, and she basically said the running water. And she sent the law, about what, has to be addressed to consider a home habitable. But, it's heat, it's utilities, all that stuff, but what's not clear to me is the water shut off is something she said the water was shut off at the homeowner's request. So it's like, not like somebody didn't pay the bill and they shut the water off. They requested that the water was shut off. And that's clearly in the Board of Health's purview, but I guess I'm confused that items of construction, like a roof, is under the Board of Health's, I'm trying to understand to Jeff's earlier question, where does their purview begin and end? Issues of construction, are they worried that the house is going to fall down on somebody? The
Well,
roof is going to fall down, or?
yeah, so Wendy's on the line, perhaps we can
Yes.
have her address that, if you don't mind, Wendy.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Pardon me, I had, I couldn't hear the other people speaking. So the question of,
So I understand that it is the Board of Health's responsibility to make sure that there is running water in a home in order for it to be inhabited. I was unaware that the Board of Health had purview over construction defects or issues like that, like the roof. The roof obviously needs some repair. I'm wondering how that falls under the purview of the Board of Health, unless you are worried that the roof is gonna cave in on somebody.
so that would be,
I'm confused about jurisdiction here.
Yeah.
yes, so the jurisdiction is minimum standards of human habitation. So the state of Massachusetts has determined that you are required to have a roof in good repair on your dwelling. The state of Massachusetts says you have to have, a shower of a certain size and plumbing of a certain, type, amperage of electricity of a certain standard. These things are considered minimum standards for human habitation, and the state sanitary code encompasses all of that. And that is under the purview of public health.
Okay, that helps, thank you. I guess my question though is, how bad does a roof have to be in order to be so serious that the home would be, uninhabitable? I mean,
Has to,
I used to have roof problems in my old house and no one tried to, so I'm just, how bad does it have to be? I'm certainly if, you were in danger of rafters falling down on somebody.
Or a
That's
major
a
hole.
major hole, the rain just comes in, I can certainly understand that, but I'm not understanding how serious this roof issue is. And how the Board of Health determined it was serious enough to warrant this type of action.
I think it's a gray area in terms of what is and is not in heaven. That's a difficult thing to deal with. I'm looking at this from another perspective and saying, water, I think, is black and white.
on that,
I would ask the question, what do you need to get a certificate of occupancy from a building inspector?
they cannot,
If they walk through that house, the water, right, you're out right with the water.
they
But
can't,
beyond that, what do you need? Wendy?
I don't believe they can get a certificate of occupancy unless they do a certain amount of renovation in the entire house. Certificate of occupancy, my understanding, is not necessary. What we are discussing
Is not necessary for what?
To meet the sanitation code.
to meet our sanitary codes, and just regarding the roof, I understand that there might be a little bit of subjectiveness, although there would be people who would argue with that it's fairly black and white as well. But I think we have worked with the Gates, and I know that I have photos from, off Google. And actually, no, Near Map, I apologize. The town has aerial photography that is available that shows that there have been tarps on that roof for quite a number of years. I went back to 2013 or 12 and there were tarps there. So it's not a question of us going there and being roofers or building inspectors. There is a need for repairs, substantial repairs, it would appear from a visual inspection.
And what is the exact repair that's needed to the plumbing in order for there to be running water?
So they have never allowed us inside the house. That might be additional issues. We have no idea if they have sinks, toilets, baths. That's not anything that we know about. We're just looking at the outside of the building and have determined that there are items that are below what the state requires for minimum standards.
Seems like water is needed, and more specifically, hot water is needed. So a plumber is needed, no question. And it sounds like there is no contract with anybody.
We,
There,
any,
a contract with anybody, a piece of paper?
For the plumber, you mean?
Well, that would be an
They're-
important
they're
guy.
Verbal, I mean, I guess.
We're gonna need something in
contract.
writing.
They will need something in writing.
Before they
They
start
have
anything.
the exchange, I mean,
Yeah.
he and I have exchanges, he's just waiting for me to clear the rest of
All
it.
right.
But may I ask, may I say
I
something?
I think at
He
this
told me he
point,
basically.
no,
can't
you
do
may
anything
not.
until I clear the basement for him to check the whole system, so he's seen the parts that we've addressed, seen so far that are damaged. They're pipes that have, like, the seam is split because the pipe, they're copper pipes and
Yeah.
the pipe froze. and split. So
So
there are 3 or 4 sections like that he's aware of, but there may be others that he can't access yet to look at, so. But he doesn't want to start until he can address the whole system.
it's not a question of starting, it's a question of having a contract to start.
Well, he can't really give an estimate until he knows the full extent of it. That's.
But can you get a
What-
contract to do
An
an
assessment.
assessment? I needed.
A contract.
Inventory of exactly what needs to be done.
Well, that's what I'm telling you,
Or
though.
written.
he's doing.
Written, we need something in writing that's evidence.
Can I ask a question?
Sure. I'm not a plumber,
What,
so.
what is your timeline on cleaning out this basement to
Uh,
get somebody in there? to
It's
assess?
about another week, so we got delayed, I said, basically, there were 2 weeks that were taken up because of Bob's health situation, or, 2 weeks. So, in the course of about a week, I was able to more or less almost all day clean out 2/3 of the basement. To get the other part to where the crawl spaces, probably about another week to just get that sorted out.
May I ask?
So that he can then get in there and see the full extent of what he needs to take care of.
And then can we what about a contractor to get inside to look at the roof?
Well, that's the person who did my roof, he's the same contractor.
Can he get in there and so
He
there's
has
nothing
already-
stopping from getting an
They
estimate,
they
He has
have,
already
they
given
have,
us an estimate.
they have a sheet with them.
but no signed contract?
He
I
has
don't
given
know
us
if
an
they signed it or
estimate.
not, but I know there's a digital.
We're gonna need that. We're gonna
That's
need
fine.
that.
May I say something, but nobody talks about it, because it was originally said to the working and so on. We're not just doing a roof, we were already in charge of doing something for the whole house. This house needed certain things that we forever did not do because my husband was a freak of law. And he was saying, you cannot enlarge, you cannot do this because we're within the 200 feet from the
roof and so on. So finally, when he saw what is happening around it, decided, okay, then we can go ahead and do what you want. So we had told the town that we're not just doing the plumbing that we need, we're doing a lot of different things. We're expanding the house on the garden side. We're taking down completely the front porch on the front. It's going to be eliminated because it was never part of the house. We're fixing the roof. The chimney was already redone. That it's covered with a tarp because raccoons from the Raleigh yard, they were going inside the roof. And we have carpet with tarps, whatever. But the roof had been finished with a cap. He said we can do that.
Respect.
So there are a lot of things that they have
Respect,
throughout
I
the
think,
time.
excuse me,
Go ahead.
that time has passed,
No, I know,
okay?
but you know, a lot of things have
You don't
happened.
have the
that-
luxury of time anymore.
I know, but we're seniors, we're 70+ years old, both of us. We had things happen. My husband fell down last year.
We
Ended up
understand
in the
there's
hospital.
extenuating circumstances.
But
I think what we're looking to do is find a path that gets you to where we want you to
But we
be,
have that.
and we haven't seen anything.
Just
But the
taking
idea is a
evidence.
certain time.
Yeah.
We don't do a back and forth. You have interrupted
I'm sorry.
several of us. Michael,
I just have two questions as far as so the plumber, I don't know what I can get from him as far as a signed contract, because he doesn't want to give an estimate until he sees the full extent of it. So
can you give you a contract for what you can?
I can offer a suggestion. There is such a thing as a $0 contract. Ask him to put in writing what he will do to perform an assessment, and the cost is zero. And then you sign that, that is a $0 valid contract, and it should have a completion date. And that, is that
If-
okay?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
And if we could put together get the vote to move forward with the legal services for the Board of Health. That we've already talked to the legal, the lawyer that was working with us. She said that there would be at least 2 to 3 weeks that between turning in the request for the next hearing date and the actual date being, heard. It would be set, and it would probably be 2 to 3 weeks out. And that sounds like it would allow for the week for Michael to finish cleaning out the basement, would allow a week for the plumber to get in, and potentially even another week for him to get a estimate written. It would give the Gateses times to talk to the, or their contractor to talk to the water department to find out what's necessary to get the water turned back on. It would potentially give, not sure why the roofer is not able to give you a quote, but you could
They
work.
gave us,
Quote, that would give you a lot of
I
time.
was back in
Please.
January.
You don't
I'm sorry,
interrupt,
Diane.
please.
And
Yes.
so both of we would be able to move forward, and so wouldn't be. And if we get signed contracts with reasonable timelines in place, we have no problem. And we've indicated to the Gates that the Board of Health is happy to allow the work to be done by them and the contractors they choose. Absolutely.
I think that Madam Chair, I think again, the linchpin is, are they living in the house or not? Because if they're not living in the house, then it's my understanding they are free to take as much time as they want with their renovations. Okay,
So-
if they are actually sleeping in the house, that is the problem. Okay? Do you
If-
understand that you cannot sleep in the house?
I'm sorry.
Live in the house.
So I would like to say that there is a bit of an issue with that, because the emergency response, and I've checked this with Chief McDaly, he will still send the fire and the police will still enter the building unless it is boarded off, so they are still in danger. They can't get in and out safely. And
That-
application means it's either you're allowed in there or you're not.
Can I ask a question? Has the house been condemned?
No.
Why
We will-
not?
Beyond that, so it was introduced and instead the board allowed them another month to continue. And at that point, we filed in court instead of formally condemning it. It also, to formally condemn is also an expense to the town to board it up and pay for somebody to come in and board it up. So it was a choice of either going to filing in court or spending to board it up and then filing in court.
So what is the process? You condemn after? I guess I'm.
Typically, you would condemn prior to this, getting to this stage.
Right, that's.
So town council felt like we were beyond that. And that it should proceed straight to a court hearing. To give a court order to come up to code, because that's what would happen after condemning.
Right, it just seems like.
So we basically skipped the condemnation process. And the court was agreeable to going right to a court order. Demanding compliance with code. And so we would be at the same spot
Yeah,
regardless.
I understand that. I'm just wondering why. You know, why did we skip that?
I don't have a good answer to that, why, it just, there was an effort to try to kind of control and encourage compliance without doing that.
Another question, has the building inspector been into this home or does he have no role to play here at all?
He could have a role if he would like. It's not necessary as far as the issues that have been currently raised. But we did ask initially, the first complaint we received, we reached out to him regarding the roof. And I believe he spoke to the gates or somehow that information was conveyed to the gates. And that was their initial permit. Well, not initial permit, but that was their permit, I think in March of 2024.
I'm confused. What did the building inspector do? I don't understand what.
Building inspector can play a role or
Did
it can
he,
be,
it sounds like from Wendy, he did something, but I don't understand what.
he was involved with the request back in the spring for building permit.
Okay, and he issued a building permit?
I don't know if it was issued, but it was applied for.
Applied, okay.
But I don't know if there was follow-up. I don't know how complete that application was.
May I
So I
answer
think
that?
it-
May I answer that?
Wait until Mr. Fettersteel is done.
So I was just gonna say, I think, the situation here is we have owners who are saying we just need a little more time. And I think from the Board of Health's perspective, that little bit of time has already been given and then some. And so there's a frustration level there. I think the owners are frustrated because they think if you'd only give us a little more time, we'd get it to the finish line. I think it's important to keep some pressure on the owners to follow through and give us the written evidences that have been asked for.
Okay.
So I think it would be appropriate to proceed with the receivership process. And I think if you wanted to give 4 weeks, that would be okay. But I think we need that deadline.
So one more time, so receivership, once we vote to go into receivership or authorize the receivership, it's about a 2 or 3 week process.
Right, so you could authorize it starting in 2 weeks from now. And that would give them 5 weeks,
I'm gonna
give
ask,
it 4 to 5 weeks to show the evidence that indeed real progress is being made.
So all they need is a contract from a plumber and a contract from a roof.
And we'll be happy with that.
You're right.
So the question I have from Mr. Gates, young Mr. Gates,
Well, I just had a clarification. So I texted myself the term you used, the $0.
$0 contract.
Would Plumber himself be familiar with that, or do I need to?
It's just a contract and the price is zero. That's it. I mean, a lot of people think a contract has to have a dollar amount. The dollar amount can be zero. It just outlines, here's what I'm gonna do, and the plumber should basically say, I'm going to inspect the property's plumbing and provide an estimate of the work involved in order to bring it up to code and turn the water on. And that, so the deliverable from your plumber is the estimate. And if he's going to do it for free, the cost of the contract is $0.
So I would like to point out that that's not actually giving us a signed contract for the work to be done. And
Right, yes, we understand, but it's a helpful step in getting documentation as to exactly how much work has to be done. I think, because that's what the issue is, part of the issue. We don't know what this is all going to cost.
I've got a question. Is this gas or oil heat?
No gas, no, we have electric heat.
Oil heat, but.
And that's the thing that I like.
Mrs. Gates, please let Michael answer.
Okay, plumbers get involved with heating.
Yeah.
And you not only need water, you need hot water. I think it's going to be a big can of worms trying to figure out for the whole house, what's the plumbing deal? You've got all kinds of pipes going in lots of different places. I'd be happy just getting a hot water heater going with just, a line going there, so you've got some water going someplace. I think the heating system, that's part of the plumbing problem.
Yeah, well, they,
And
No, they have
Well,
electric.
yes.
unless you say it's electric, but,
Please,
okay, go
the
ahead.
current system in the house was an oil heating system. My parents are planning on switching to an electric.
All right, so that's not there now. That's not reality.
Well, they've been
We have
using electric
we have
heating for the
everyone
last,
an electric
how many
heat.
years now.
It was a mobile electric heater that you,
Yeah.
Everyone.
okay, I understand. That's not central electric.
No, I understand. I'm just saying.
That's-
May I speak, Michael?
no, you may not speak, and it's
So-
not Michael who controls this meeting.
No, he doesn't know everything.
Well, it's been a problem for 12 years. That's a long time. And I'm just putting that out with the plumber that where he's got to go and to try and do everything may be very hard.
So
I'm just saying the oil heating system is not going back in, so that's not. going
Okay.
forward. That's already been decided.
Okay. So, the heat is electric with mobile devices
At the moment, but
at the
it's.
moment, but the intention is to bring it up. to
Just
date.
space heater.
But it's
These are
also-
not
but
space
it's also going-
heaters.
But it's also going to be an electric going forward, so they're going to put in a proper electric heating.
So,
system.
so I think it's, having been through this with my son as a renter in Boston, space heaters do not constitute
Heat.
electric heat. That is not it's not a habitable place if all you have are space heaters in every room.
No, I'm not saying
So-
that's what's going to be used.
No, I'm talking about right now. So that, again, this all pivots on the fact that
Yeah.
no one can be living there, right? Because space heaters don't count.
But in the winter, we were not here.
So this goes, I think, more to my comment that the plumber is focused on running water. He's not focused on the heating system.
But you also need heat in order to have
Yes.
But-
place.
But I think right now, I hope we're trying to figure out what the steps are.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen that they're going to do a full renovation between now and 4 weeks.
Or a
we
plan.
just want to get minimum standards.
can I ask a question?
Jeff, please.
Do you think in 2 weeks' time, you can get this basement cleared out and get a plumber in there?
Yes.
In 2 weeks,
Oh, yeah.
and you can get a signed contract
I-
from a plumber,
I believe so.
and you can get a signed contract from a roofer in 2 weeks.
So that, the roofer and there's already a contract. It's not fully formally signed because of the addition that they wanted to do. It came down to speak with the building permit person, I think about a week ago, about doing a removal of the porch and some other things that are also going to be done.
So that can be a separate contract, you can get a contract just to get the roof done,
To fix the roof.
okay? So if we gave them 5 weeks' time, they should be somewhere in 2 weeks. And if not, we'll be moving on.
So I guess I,
Like filed July 1.
So I think that is a fair way to proceed. I would, though, formally vote to proceed with receivership if that does not.
Right, I'm saying make
the-
the timeline 5
Yes.
weeks.
And I also think part of
What,
the directive is that it is not habitable, and there is not to be anyone living there.
Right, oh, right,
Sleeping there.
yeah,
Meaning, you can do work in the house,
Yeah, so this,
but Katrina and Tim cannot be in that house on a daily basis.
right.
Agreed.
Michael? Yes.
I am in there on a daily basis to do things in there.
That's fine.
Okay, so my mother has been concerned because a lot of times when I go in there, it's probably around like 10 or 11 o'clock at night to do things. And she's like, they're gonna see lights on, they're gonna think people are living here. It's like, well, this
She's
is where I
right.
have time to do things. Like, so I don't know if this is part of the problem with whoever thinks someone's living there, because I'm in there like weird hours doing stuff, so. It's been very frustrating for me.
I understand.
so I also have a suggestion. I understand you want to renovate your home,
Yes,
but right now you are at risk of losing it. I would urge you to focus on repairs first, okay? The minimum necessary repairs. And then worry about expansion later. That's just 2 cents worth of advice. Because this is a very uncomfortable situation for
so that's
everybody.
what the judgment of the judge, the court on May 9th was, that his only judgment had to do with the water connection. And he said, just good, good faith efforts, get that done, and then we'll proceed from there. Things
Right.
seem to be going out of control. That was
Right.
basically the verdict.
So I've got a question for Greg, one more time. So if we follow, and I like where Jeff was going with this. So we sign the order today, or agree to the receivership and give them 5 weeks to produce the information that we require? Is that what we're saying?
Well, 2 weeks, and then you're saying it'd be
So we're
another
gonna have
3 weeks before.
Yeah, because there's the work's not gonna be completed in 5 weeks.
No.
No,
So we need to, if we give you the week to 2 weeks to clean that out and get someone in there and get what we perceive to be, then it'll be our judgment. If it's inadequate.
So.
I think what Jeff was suggesting was that you have 2 weeks to generate a signed contract for the plumbing.
and a road.
And that if we don't see that copy of that signed contract, then in 2 weeks, at that deadline, you will proceed with the receivership process, which will basically give you another 3 weeks.
Right.
Assuming it takes that long.
Yep.
Why don't we just agree that it gets filed on July 1? You still got 2 or 3 weeks. We're gonna be meeting on July.
7.
We should have something in front of us.
We have the board.
Yeah,
That's time.
you can really kick this back to the Board of Health, but yes.
Yes, but that seems so that
I'm
you've got a
worried
date.
about- Frankly, I'm worried about kicking it back to the Board of Health.
So Wendy has her hand up.
Yes, Wendy.
Hi, I just wanted to make 2 things clear. The judge's order referenced the order letters from November 5th, November 4th, and November 5th. And those include, so all of the items that the Board of Health has been asking to be fixed. And I do understand how the select board are assuming some ownership of the negotiations that you have made. But this is a Board of Health order that has been approved by the Board of Health, and I just did want to, call to attention that the board does need to see the documents, agree that this is adequate, which they will, because this is what we've been asking them to do all along. But I did just want to mention that you can certainly, we could work on this together or otherwise, but the Board of Health does need to see these documents as well. So I just want to make sure the gates understand that anything they turn into you, they do also need to turn into the Board of Health.
Anything they turn into us is a public document.
Yes, but they also need to turn it into the Board of Health, just specifically. I just don't want them to not realize that.
I think you've made that very clear. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I
Mrs.
just
Gates,
clarification about the water? Because when you connect the water, you have to connect it to the whole house.
Yep.
Now, we're not gonna have a water heater anymore. We're having a new system with the one that heats the water as the water goes through it. So when you do that, the guy cannot come and do it now without any extension and everything we're doing. So can we just put the connection of the water, but not have the hot water? Because the hot water will go only in the kitchen at this point, which is the crawl space.
All you need right now is a signed contract. That's
No,
it.
So
to
the
this
sign for
point.
the whole job to be done?
Right.
It doesn't have to be done, the whole thing, because it will be with a new connection afterwards that will have to be
Yeah,
piped
that's
to
down
the
the
rest.
road.
That's what I'm asking.
You just need a signed contract
That's
right now.
fine with us.
A signed contract to make the repairs needed to make the house habitable,
No,
regardless of what expansion plans you have. Would not put your home at risk in order for those expansion plans to
I
be
didn't
taken
know that
into
you
account.
do partial and then continue the rest. If you put the whole job in one or just a contract.
You need to do that which is necessary to make the house habitable first,
To the
And
water
then-
and the roof.
and then move on to your expansion plans. But at the moment, you are not to sleep in the house.
We're not. We're not.
Okay.
And I won't live, and our home is a good home. Our living room, our dining room, that we have no signs of any problems. We have things in there that I wouldn't even live there if my house was not a safe home. It's just the roof that needs to be done and the water to be connected. Everything else fine. We don't have a modern kitchen. We don't have granite, counters and all
Fine,
that stuff,
fine.
which is an old kitchen.
Okay, thank you. Michael,
When they get
Mr.
submitted,
Gates.
do I submit them to the building department or to? because
When you have the contract, drop it off at the town administrator's office. And someone in that office will see that everyone who needs it gets it.
Yeah.
Just to your, sorry to jump in,
yeah,
Greg.
please.
Mr. Barletta, please go ahead.
Yeah.
To your question about schedule, there can be simultaneous tracks going on here. Court proceedings will take time to get scheduled. So your approval will then initiate a process with the court. It'll take time for them to set a hearing date. That'll be weeks out after that. So you don't necessarily have to do them in stepped order. You can keep the pressure on while also giving them time to,
Well,
you can always withdraw. From the.
Yeah.
At what point can you no longer withdraw?
I think,
You can draw right up to the hip, right?
Right.
Because you will get a date.
5 minutes before the, yeah.
Yeah,
You will get a date, so you know when that date's coming.
Once the order is done, it's done.
once the order's done, it's done.
but it may be,
You will understand it.
5-6 weeks before that hearing is.
But
Yeah,
you
town council did indicate that on a matter of this nature, they tend to act pretty quickly.
and I have to assure
But
you,
if this is
Mrs. Gates, please don't interrupt.
My understanding is that even if we have the hearing date, that the time to set, it would be a decision to go forward with receivership. There would still be additional meetings to get a receiver on board with his plan. There are steps before an actual receiver is granted by the court permission to go in and do the work. So that would likely be, the 6 weeks or more out.
Question, so what type of individual is normally hired to be the receiver, appointed, I should say?
There are professional
Receiver-
receivers.
Professional receivers.
Yes, there are. It's a profession that you can enter into. Apparently, they're all men at the time.
Contractor types.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and they would be allowed to get into the house and tell us what's
Right, so
really going
the court has a list of receivers that they use.
okay.
Okay. Well, I'm still in favor of setting a date when we would file this at some point in the future. So the clock start ticking.
I think you should say you will proceed with the receivership process in 2 weeks if you
Yeah.
don't have a contract.
Yeah.
I think that's the deadline.
I think so.
I think you said that.
May I
It's
have-
their house, so I.
No, I know.
Yeah,
Mrs. Gates. My son is not the
I
owner.
understand.
understand.
Mrs. Gates, please go ahead.
Thank you. It would be insane for us not to fix what we have to do in our home. Trust me. I was embarrassed for the past 2 years to see my roof the way it was. Michael was the one who would climb up and put those tarps so the shingles will not fly because they flew from each other anyway. But it's only the front part of the roof that has a problem. We will hate to have the town spend money on us, taxpayers' money, to go to court and all these other things. I don't know how we arrived in this kind of state.
As
And I have to trust me that I have never heard anything like this in my life, and I have never experienced any. This is the first, and I hope it's the last time I ever come to anything like this. And I promise you that we have the funds. We had people who were trying to say, maybe we haven't paid the taxes and all the stuff. Said, we have nothing done like that. It's just that things happen in life, and some are personal, some are not. We are hoping, I wish my house was done last November, but it wasn't. So I thought, oh, maybe by the 4th of July, it will be all done. Well, it's not gonna be done, obviously, hopefully, some of it. will. So that's all, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think what we want to say is that we will authorize the proceeding for receivership in 2 weeks. What was July 1st?
That sounds good to me.
Unless there is, a written contract from a plumber.
And a roofer.
And we would still have a 2 or 3 week window after that to get something in, and then we would stop. But
Well, if they were- So what we're saying, if we can get those documents, we won't go to the receivership. What we're saying.
Unless-
We're
unless-
authorizing receivership
We're
tonight on a
authorized, if
certain
we don't
date.
receive that information by
Right.
date certain, then we take the next.
then it's filed, and they still have some time.
And I think that it's the minimum standard will be habitable.
It's unclear to me
For what?
what exactly the full extent of habitable.
Or it should be outlined in the court documents.
So Wendy, are you able to just summarize list of 4 or 5 items? So we have water, we have roof,
Have egress,
egress.
the front retaining wall.
Oh, no, that wall was done by the town. Do you want the town to pay for it?
Does the front retaining wall have anything to do with the habitability of the house? So I'd like to, I didn't see I must have missed it. Did we have the court order in this package? I must have missed it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I got lost in the fans and the bonds. I think I don't see it.
Yeah, here's.
What page?
This is the. This is the.
We shouldn't be,
This
to
is-
Wendy's earlier point, we shouldn't be making up the list, right? So,
So you could just say comply with the court order. Contracts to comply with the court order.
so,
This is the complaint from the Board of Health.
right. And I'm
Which is
trying,
not the court order,
right,
and
so
there's. Yeah,
where's the court order?
no,
It's not-
that's the complaint. from
That's the complaint.
The correction order, is that the court
Yes.
order? Okay,
Is it,
No, the correction order is the order that was, that the Board of Health sent to the gates.
okay,
okay, so where is
You have a
the
copy of the court
court
order,
order?
Wendy?
I don't know what I'm approving if
I
I can't
have
see
it.
the court order.
You gave it to them in their packet. Basically, it's saying that they have 30 days to comply with the orders of correction dated November 4th and 5th, which are basically the same, except one says, that there was no water at the house.
So what you're saying is the court order says that they must adhere to the correction order issued by the Board of Health?
Yes,
Correction order has 3 things listed on it: failure to maintain structural elements, maintenance of areas in a safe and sanitary condition, retaining wall, and means of egress. Again, I don't understand. Here's my problem, okay? I have no problem with the Board of Health requiring running water. But some of the items on this list, I'm just questioning how this has anything to do with the habitability of the house. Retaining wall, what does that have to do with it?
the
And
retain,
what experience on the Board of Health membership says it is structurally unstable? I want the building inspector to go tell me it's structurally unstable.
And then it says retaining wall is less than 10 feet from foundation. I don't understand what.
That's his
So
own.
that's my problem, Greg, is I have no problem with the Board of Health purview, but I'm
into,
uncomfortable with, are they possibly going beyond their purview out of the goodness of their heart, trying to make sure the home is in decent shape. I'm questioning some of the items on this correction order as
They're
possibly outside the purview of the Board of Health.
they're all listed in the sanitary code.
Can you explain?
All is currently bowing out onto or into the walkway space, and potentially that could cause fall or an accident.
So I think at the moment, this board is less concerned with possibly tripping on the sidewalk than.
I would just point out though, that the judge was comfortable putting that in his order. So you do.
I understand, but he's assuming that this was, I mean, I don't know anybody on the Board of Health as a construction expert. I would feel more comfortable if the building inspector had deemed that area unsafe or.
Inspector won't do that though.
Yeah.
May I answer that? Mr.
Yes.
Orlando already had sent us a letter when the wall started bulking out. The stones were not taken down because the plows in the winter, there was a pole, it's a pole in the corner, and they will go sometimes through, so they will hit the wall. And the man originally, when that happened and the wall actually broke in the corner, the town paid to have a man who does chimney work. He's in the cricket paper and everything. And he came and fixed it, but he fixed only the part of the corner that all the rocks were really moved. And then the rest of the cracks maintained the same size open. So with the winter and the rain, that froze and started pushing the stones further out. And Mr. Orlando sent us a letter, which I have, last year, and he said, those walls, the wall has to be fixed because it's endangering the people who walk on the sidewalk. So we talked with Mr. Orlando then, and we said, actually, the wall, we explained what happened.
The town should fix it.
And he said, I said, but we don't want the town to fix it because they fixed that before in the corner, they didn't do the rest. So I crowbarred the rocks and put them down, and Michael moved them in front of the storage. And we thought in the spring, we're gonna have to build the whole wall because the whole wall is a problem. And it's not a part of the foundation. It was built in the 40s. The foundations of the house were built all under the house, and they're like mycelium boulders and have nothing to do with the foundation of the house. It was done much later in 40s. So we're fixing it ourselves this summer.
My opinion, that's beyond the scope of what we should be worried about here. I think we should be worried about a contract for the roof, contract to get the water going, and go from there.
Go from there. That's it. Just those 2 items.
I agree.
There's an egress issue that emergency personnel would, I'd be concerned about emergency personnel trying to access the dwelling.
So on that topic, my thought is that everything that I've seen though, there is temporary stuff being placed in front of these openings or these entryways because they're working on the property. And I don't know that that's different than any other construction site.
Yeah.
I just,
And
it's
frankly,
not
our
permanent obstruction.
They're-
not happening.
responders are reasonably agile.
Yes,
And what are they responding to? No one's
right,
living
no
there.
one's living there. They're responding to a construction accident or
Which
something.
would happen,
Right.
which is a lot worse than that.
Right.
Michael?
What temporary things are you currently referring to? 'Cause I'm not-
Oh, it says like, potting plants or something, somewhere, some of
those,
that, you know.
I think that, from what I understand, there was a lot of confusion. The Tim Brady storage facility, they have access to their building until 7 o'clock at night. One night I went to move some chairs. But it was after that time, so I left them on the front of my parents' steps with a tarp over them, and I guess someone saw that and thought there was. It technically wasn't obstruction, but it was there for one night until I could take.
And it's gone now.
It's been gone for 8 months now.
Is the front door accessible now?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. I drove by it today.
But it has
I
plastic
I
pots.
just go in.
Oh, okay, fine. That's the way you access the house,
I go.
both ways.
So that the access egress and both are clear.
Relative, my mom likes to put some flower pots in front of it because she doesn't want people coming to the, she had a sign for the UPS people to not leave packages at the front door, but they kept doing it anyway, so she put the pots there to make them go around.
Why are UPS packages coming to this address?
I
Who's
get,
living
that's
there?
where I get my packages delivered to, even though I live across the street.
We have a garden.
One, peel the onion.
Oh, I don't
Just-
have a-
Safe.
like, their back door is safe as it's in the yard, mine is on the street.
Right, right on School Street. So
Yeah.
if anything that's left there is
I've
very
never
exposed.
taken, so.
Okay.
Somebody took my vest the other day from the wall that I was.
Ah.
giving.
Oh,
And so. Have we made a decision?
So I guess my point in looking at this was, how do we formulate the order? I'm not looking to agree with everything that's on here. I wouldn't take somebody's house because they, didn't fix the retaining wall. So I think we need to be very specific about what items
Constituted.
constitute a serious enough.
I'm gonna go to the roof and the
The
water.
roof and running water, those are the two things,
Hot
and
water.
that's it. The rest of it, they can fix in their renovations.
Just to be clear, the only reason they ended up in court with us was because of the running water.
Right.
Right.
That's number one.
Right.
And so
Okay, that's
so-
understandable.
So everyone's point here, I'm good with. Further defining that the order as to those two items.
Yep.
Greg can,
So I believe a motion is in order to instruct the.
Not gonna be written out here, I'll tell you that.
So the motion is to request from the owners written contracts by July 1st that will bring the water up to code in the building and fix the roof, to repair the roof to habitable standards. And that if that documentation is not received by July 1st, the town will have the Board of Health proceed with court proceedings for receivership.
And just one other question. Can we put a time frame for I mean. Some scrupulous people might say, okay, I've got my contracts, I'm done now. Do we put a time frame when this work has to be done, like within the next 6 months? Or,
I would
I
not.
don't know, with contractors.
If they're not living there, it doesn't matter if it takes 2 months or 6 months to have the work done, right? The point is they can't live there.
We have to do it in the
So-
summer. I don't want to be in the winter out.
I know, but I just don't want,
Well,
okay,
I
we
think it's,
constable, we got the contracts in place. We're done.
You wanna say within 6 months then, starting date?
I don't know, but we can't,
You can't tell a
We're going into
contractor.
the summertime, contractors are busy, they pick and choose when they're gonna fill up. So we can't hold them up, I wanna see it like,
I think 6 months is a long time.
it is.
But the contract
at
should
a minimum,
state,
you should give with an
Should give
update
starting
on
date.
construction progress within.
Number of months.
Okay, that's what I wanna see, I wanna see, there's a metric that we have to follow, I wanna make sure that we're just not placating us by giving us the contracts and then walking away.
Okay, fair,
Well, would
fair
they
point.
be coming to us or going to the Board of Health?
What?
Health, right?
I would have a vote.
Are we going to the permit of Mr. Orlando for this also? Yeah, because we have to give him so we report it to him, so he can come and check.
You have to pull, your contract will pull permits.
The contractor would deal with the building inspector.
Was the roofer who is coming, did it over the internet. And the woodwork, we actually said, let's do that house first, see how the work goes, because we never knew how he works. And then we saw the corners and we didn't think that was very well done, so we want.
At this point, you are seriously in danger of losing your house.
Well, I hope we don't come to anything in my life ever,
It's,
something like that, and I promise you, I'm not proud of it, I'm sick of it. And I would never say anything
So-
that I would not do.
so even if the roofer doesn't do things exactly the way you want,
Not exactly, I'm talking about the quality of the work.
you need to have a
Yeah.
roof. You need to have.
No, I'm saying what they did.
Yeah.
The current.
Thank you. Okay, so the motion is that the select board will authorize the money, the legal fees for a petition for receivership unless there is a contract for to provide running water and roofing,
Hot water, running water.
running water and hot water.
Right, and that, by July first,
By July first.
and then progress reports will be provided on the progress of the construction. I would say give a progress report every 2 months until complete.
Okay,
Yes.
that's good. Okay,
And does that give us, is there a caveat there that if we're not satisfied with the, I mean, that's
It's always
that
fine.
becomes
for receipt.
subjective,
Yeah.
but if we're not satisfied with the progress, or if you got a contract and we've been staring at that top still for another 4 months, what's going on here?
You can always move to receive.
because we have that paperwork.
We have to pick.
So
I
we do
mean,
that.
that's fair. I think,
Okay.
I think that's more than fair.
Yeah.
Where we are now, where we were and where we are now, I think that's, fair. I think it's speaks to the issue that you're dealing with, it speaks to Board of Health. I think it's the way to go.
May I say something to all of you? We would have been working on the roof of the house now, the same roof that we did, but because of my husband's 3 weeks, I was in Boston. Pioneer.
We're aware of that.
For a long time. So that brought the roofer said, well, I have another job. I cannot
We
wait.
don't need the job done.
No,
We just
Oh.
need a contract.
that I want the job done.
I understand that you want the job done, but first you need a contract.
Yeah, I know.
Debbie, can you read back the motion?
Yeah, every back in about 2 days.
Can we ask AI to read back?
Let me try again. That the select board will authorize the planning board, the Board of Health to move toward receivership unless we have received a contract to bring hot and cold running water into the house and a contract to repair the roof.
By July.
But
By July
by
1st.
July 1st.
And with progress reports on construction.
And we will require progress reports every
5 months.
2 months, 3
Until
months,
complete.
every 2 months. until-
You have to, I
I
would
got
change it
that.
from, hot and cold running water to the house. They already have water to the house.
In the house,
It's
sorry.
in the house, I want to see it in the house.
In the house, not too bad.
Oh,
Just a-
Second, was that a motion? I'll second.
yeah.
Yeah. that was a motion, sort of. Okay, is there any further
Done
discussion? John?
Yes.
Anne says yes, Kathy?
Yes.
Brian
Yes.
and Jeff?
Yes.
Thank you all for coming and
Thank you.
explaining all of this.
I'm sorry, we.
Good luck. Good luck.
Oh,
And
Hopefully we don't see you again.
we
I
will,
hope I don't see you, I hope I see you, I hope I don't see you for this.
Good luck.
Good.
we will ignore complaints that there are lights on at odd hours.
We will have, no, but we leave them on all the time, the lights there, because we don't want anybody breaking in and saying anything. Don't we leave the lights on?
I tend to go to bed at like 2, 3 in the morning, so for me, it's.
Okay.
Maybe leave them
Again.
at 5, because they're there all.
So we trust you that when you say that you're not living there, and if we find that in fact you've decided to sleep there,
Oh.
We will see you again.
we'll move to receive it. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you.
Okay, at some point I have, right. Okay, the next is the amended flag policy final reading. It's something. After the transfer, it's.
Make the motion.
You have the motion.
I have a motion.
You got a motion?
I'd like to know. Reminds me of Hughes Corporation. I move the select board approve the request from the Manchester by the City Museum to fly.
That's
Oh, wait,
not,
no.
that's not it. That's,
No,
that's talking
that's
flag
not.
Flag
policy.
policy.
That's Ann's.
Flag
Well, you said it was me, that's why I want to say it.
It's not-
I move that.
Actually, in.
This volunteering is hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, hey. Number six.
Okay. I move that the board adopt the updated flag policy as written.
Second.
Discussion? Jeff,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Anne says yes.
John, yes.
Very good. Then we go to the Forster flag.
Flag, yeah.
I move that can I do it now?
Sure.
Chomping at this for a while now. I move the select board approve the request from the Manchester by the Sea Museum to fly the Forester flag in commemoration of the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution and the first version of the American flag on the town hall flag pole from July 1st to July 6th, and to sign a proclamation to that effect.
Second.
Discussion.
Forster flag.
Yeah.
Forster.
Forster.
Does anybody know what this looks like?
Yes, there's a
Yes,
picture
there's a
in your
picture.
packet.
It's red and it's red and it's got 7 stripes on one side and.
Oh,
six
that's
stripes
the
on
flag?
other.
Oh, what the-
I thought it was a bedspread, to be honest with you.
It's,
There it is, right there.
it's a battle
Oh, I
flag.
didn't know that. I'm like, what is this red?
It's not a display flag, it's a battle flag. It's how you find your unit.
I
Yes,
think we're
you
gonna
said.
get a lot of
Yeah.
questions on that.
We are.
We should probably have some preemptive
So
communication. on
they're,
that.
they're planning an article next week.
Okay. Well, I would put stuff
Yeah.
on social media. This is not, communist China raising.
Right.
Yes. On-
Chinese flag,
It's a lot like that, so,
I think you're gonna hear some people.
definitely.
But I think the explanation.
Well, I think, yeah, I think it works,
Yep.
and I think, and then, this is not part of this discussion. But I'd like to see it, and then an annual event, probably around Patriots Day.
Yeah, maybe it's Patriots Day. All right, the museum board is taking note of that comment.
And I think that, for the
Flag
unveil,
be prominent in the parade also.
no, it won't be able to on our,
Well,
We have a rep.
there's a replica that will be on the,
but I think that in the future, I mean, I like the unveiling of it. For
Yeah.
this parade, but I think that if it was supposed to go to Lexington and Concord,
I think that's a good date.
yeah,
That's a good idea.
you know,
I like,
stop and then just stop it at Al's and be done.
like they did in 1775.
Okay.
So we'll have a proclamation for you to sign.
Yeah.
If you can stop by end of the.
Wednesday.
Wednesday?
Yes, not here tomorrow. so.
Right.
Okay. Good. All right, did we vote on that?
We haven't. I don't think.
Yeah, you did.
Remember,
Did we vote?
You
No,
read it.
But you made the motion.
you made
I'm
the.
doing it again because he corrected me on how I pronounced it too.
They gotta
I
read
had a
it.
lot of,
Jeff, you were the second?
I did second, I did.
Yeah.
Kathy
I seconded it, but I don't know if we.
Okay.
voted.
you did vote. I.
No, we just discussed it, I think.
Oh, okay.
Voted.
Okay.
Well, let's vote again.
Yes,
Anne says yes. Kathy?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Dogwood flags temporary.
Right.
So like Wednesday afternoon, Debbie, would it be ready? If you're out tomorrow, it wouldn't be ready Wednesday morning.
I'll try to get it first thing done Wednesday morning and I'll send it out to you guys soon.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
It's not gonna be long.
Right. The next item is, the hybrid meeting protocol. And that's the purpose of this memorandum is to establish proper protocols. And I think,
Sure. Again, so it says here, it's the, first memorandum is established. The genesis of this is that it's my belief that, all adjudicatory boards should be meeting hybrid. Okay, I think that, we should be holding all these boards the highest standards. Okay, for, community interaction and engagement. And as such, all boards should follow the same rules of conduct, when it comes to public engagement. All right. I mean, I can speak more to this. I think it's pretty self-explanatory as to what I'm trying to accomplish here.
I have a problem with as a convenience to cover this meeting is available electronically. In the event of a technology failure, the meeting will continue in person. If we're only requiring a quorum of the board be present and other members of the board are coming in by Zoom, I don't think it's appropriate to continue the meeting if we don't have.
Well, I think this was more to speak to, it would, say a presenter, say an applicant, had a problem with a Zoom. Just like, or an applicant couldn't make it to a hybrid meeting. Okay, we would automatically continue that. This is just, the disclaimer itself, okay, was ripped from the pages of the town of Wenham.
Yeah, I even if it had been ripped from the pages of heaven. I think the Zoom portion of our meetings is important and it's a significant step toward transparency of the board. And making it optional.
I'm just saying, I didn't present it properly. My point being that if there is a technical glitch that so one particular item on the agenda can't be heard. Because say it is just an applicant that's having problems with the Zoom, but who is all of a sudden he can't get his displays up on the board, or he can't share the screen, or whatever, a myriad of reasons why it doesn't happen. That particular item on the agenda would be continued to the next opportunity, all right? It wouldn't end, it would move on to the next item on the agenda.
It's what concerns me is if it's the whole Zoom that falls off. And nobody can follow the meeting.
So
That means other board members who might be on Zoom, they're out for the rest of the
Yeah.
time. That's the point,
That's,
or a major point there.
or
So,
for boards that take public comment, someone who had comment that they thought was significant.
I understand when you're on Zoom, you're taking that chance in that situation. If it's that important, show up.
So is this a mute discussion? I thought we received information that town council said we don't have the authority under state law right now to enact this type of procedure.
I think that I still think it should be protocol.
So let me offer possible compromise. I read the council's, opinion. Sounds like we don't have the authority to mandate anything. But I understand what you were trying to communicate the last time we talked about this was that you think people ought to have the right to come to a meeting and face the adjudicatory
Come up
board
with
in
simple ones.
person, okay, in person. Can we establish a, I don't know if we call it a best practices or a, maybe protocol is the right word, to, you know, the committees have the right to run them how they want right now under state law. But if an applicant requests an in-person meeting, I would hope that the board members would honor that request and hold an in-person meeting for, you know, rather than say all the meetings have to be hybrid. You know, you may have applicants who actually would prefer Zoom because they may be working in Boston, have a, you know, an hour and a half commute here. So can we put it on allow the applicant to do what you say, they give them the right to request an in-person meeting?
I hear what you're saying, right? I don't even know why we're debating this, to be honest with you. I think that this is what I read as far as reasons we don't need it, I thought were excuses and not reasons. Okay.
We're talking about town council?
No, I'm talking about the one board in particular that is an adjudicatory.
He's talking
board.
about town council.
Yeah,
I
I'm
know
I'm
you're talking
talking
about
town
town
council,
council,
like, I'm wondering if we are trying to discuss something that we don't have the authority to implement.
Yeah, I kind of,
I
am
didn't
leaning,
realize that, we talked about it 2 weeks ago.
I'm leaning with Kathy. I think we ought to make the statement that we would prefer hybrids rather than anything that is going to be totally.
Applicant, you know, if
Well,
someone.
no, the
requested
applicant
it-
thing, yes, if they
requested an
want
in-person
that,
meeting,
that's
people
correct.
ought to show up, you know, I think.
And if that's the case, why then people have to show up in person if an applicant wants to do that. But otherwise, I think we can just say.
We
it's-
can't order other boards to do that.
No, we are
No.
not. We're saying we prefer that everybody meet hybrid. And I know that one board is doing.
You know, we can't, when does that, state law expire, 2027?
2027.
It might be 2 years before.
This is insane.
Whatever.
I think it's been extended a
Well,
couple
what?
times though.
Well, you gotta write a note to your state senator or something and say you don't want this, but, because that's the way it's written right now.
Well, again, I vehemently. I would prefer to implement the protocol and then let someone come back and come after us.
I think Concom said they would do that though. And do we want to
spend it
engage in
pretty
more
No, I don't want to spend.
litigation? I don't really, I'm so up to here with the wonderful litigation that we have. I don't have.
Just- I'm gonna say there is no good reason not to do it.
No. I think communication is a personal preference, unfortunately, and since we're all humans, we don't all have the same preferences. Are you sure? I'm pretty sure we're all humans, but I could be wrong.
Well, it's unfortunate that everyone feels that way.
What should we do?
Well, again, I think that in the best interest of this community, all right, we should afford them the opportunity to meet in person. Okay? I think that it's
Nobody around here is denying that.
okay.
So wait a minute, has Concom, and so my suggestion was that we allow an applicant to request an in-person meeting. Have we actually asked Concom if they would object to that? They're
Because
reasonable
apparently they
people.
can.
Well, but we did, I don't think we asked that specific question. They're very reasonable people. And I would think that, you know, that they might go along with that. You know, if an applicant really wanted an in-person meeting, would you be open to holding one? Maybe that is something we can write into the policy or whatever.
They would have to agree to.
That's what I'm asking, but if we haven't asked them, then we don't know.
No,
if
I,
they agree.
yeah, no, I agree. It's a road to go down, for sure.
Well,
Why don't we
Are you
ask
the
them?
Concom rep?
What?
Are you the Concom rep?
I am, but I
Well,
try
why
to
don't you ask?
keep trying to go to meetings and I can't find them. Because they're not here.
Oh, you mean going physically?
Funny. You're.
I show up and no one's ever here.
So maybe you can ask them if they would be open to that as a compromise, you know?
Okay, I'll ask them the next time. I think they're July 1st, I think.
Yeah, first.
Right. I just, again, it
It would be
seems,
disappointing if they said no. That, no, a resident comes to them and requests an in-person meeting, that would be disappointing.
as I read their memos, they don't think it's necessary. But anyway, that's enough. of that.
I think we've gone,
We've kicked
we've,
this.
we've kicked this one around
Yeah.
about enough. And,
Okay. To be continued.
I'm going to suggest that we stand up. Because I have been sitting for long enough that my legs aren't.
So if the chair stands, you all have to stand?
You don't have to stand, but I am going to stand up
You're
and
welcome
get
to
myself a glass of water.
1 minute recess?
That's impressive.
Where are we?
Yeah, I didn't.
You should,
That was a
it took me out right at the
consent
knees. You know, it's illegal. It's not immoral. It's,
Take care.
well,
Oh, yeah,
no,
we
just
kicked
because
that
you
around.
can do something doesn't mean you should do something. Just because they are something else, it should be high.
Well, that's what I want to see what the temperature is. I want to see what kind of answer they
Oh, they're
give.
gonna answer it.
I think that's important. Let's see what they're really.
You should sit up. Uh,
Let's see what they're
I'm
made
not
of.
overly- I don't think I was asking anyone for the firstborn.
Look, I used to have an hour and a half commute home.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm telling you, there's no way I could have made a 6:30 meeting, which would have benefited all of you, all right? But I'm just saying, if you have to show up in person all the time, that can be rough. Not everybody works on K-band.
You could also separate it between a meeting and a hearing. So,
There you go.
you know, where a hearing, like you're talking about, when you're facing an adjudicatory board as a resident, that's usually through a hearing, which is held to a higher standard of.
I'm willing
There you
to,
go.
I'm willing to entertain that.
So is that against the law? Did town council say we couldn't?
I didn't read it, but when we looked at it, the law doesn't say the law doesn't really authorize you to make that rule, but it doesn't say you can't.
For a public hearing.
Yeah, that a town can like set up a standard process. You know, it doesn't say. I have to look at what town council wrote, but when we looked at it, it wasn't that. The law isn't super clear on, it just says what boards are allowed to do as far as open meeting law, but it doesn't say.
And she
Each
interpreted
board
that.
has its own authority, or the board of selectmen can or can't set protocol, right? Is that how?
She's interpreting that, she interpreted the language that said boards can meet remotely.
Right.
It's giving them the authority to make that call themselves.
No.
But that's interpretation.
But I like, the suggestion of a hearing, maybe that's an avenue that could be pursued or something, but let's see what they come back with.
See, that's a sensitivity with regard to the applicants. The other piece of the picture there is that if you don't have in-person meetings, many of the board members never meet each other. That's not the case with this particular board, because they have field
Site visits.
all the time. But there would be a lot of other boards where, and I mean, I joined this group when
Everything was remote.
everything was remote. We didn't see each other for 2 years.
Bottom line is you can't run a big company unless you have remote meetings. So
Yeah.
the notion that everybody has to be in person for everything is really not true. And that was long before COVID and long before Zoom. So it's just, preference.
Could we ask town council whether it would be possible to distinguish a hearing from a general meeting? That
You can ask, I mean, frankly, everything that
Yeah.
Concom does is a hearing.
yes, that's. Yeah.
Yeah, they're always
My point with,
dealing with issues.
that's just one,
Yeah.
that's town
It's
council,
always that one.
one opinion. All right, I'm willing to take the fight. What I'm saying.
When would you like to take this fight up again? I'm done with it for tonight.
No, I'm just saying is that, all I'm saying is that we have town council's opinion of how they interpret the, okay. I would like to set the protocol and see what,
Well, and if we have another discussion on this, I would like to have the in-person protocol be driven by the resident, the applicant.
we put this on
Okay,
for.
because not everybody is in agreement that
Yeah.
virtual
second
meetings are
July.
ineffective.
Second July meeting?
Yeah.
21st.
The second meeting in July or?
The second meeting.
Second meeting.
You want another meeting without this one.
I'll do that if we can give up ever doing trees again.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
All right, I will agree to that if we can come up with a compromise, and I never want to see a tree again.
I understand. Okay, let's move on to the liaison assignments. Kathy, you have
Yeah, I got,
several, and you've added, I think,
yeah,
facilities.
so here's what I have issues with.
Yeah,
I
that's-
really, it's not so much the volume, it's the timing. I have problems with the Board of Health, attending the Board of Health meetings. I have hardly attended any of those. And actually, I'm just not assigned to the ZBA, so I don't know how that was never mine, so that is
That
not
was
mine.
Okay,
ZBA's.
I also have issues with Wednesday evenings, the Finance Committee, so I'm looking to offload the Finance Committee.
I at the moment am down to the school committee, so I would take on finance and Board of Health.
Yeah, so then that just leaves me Bike and Ped, Downtown Improvement, and the Facilities Committee, and those are very managed.
John. You are the only one who has a department.
Yeah, that's correct. Well, actually, you're dealing with safety.
I do,
public safety.
it's a, what do you call it, de facto kind of public safety.
Okay.
that we-
Yeah, he's dealing with, he keeps in touch with the chiefs.
Yeah. In fact, we have.
So that's kind of the, yeah.
Like Laughing Dollar Dunk.
And that's an appropriate, I mean, not appropriate for you necessarily, but that's an appropriate thing to keep an eye on.
You know, and we can talk about this during the liaison updates, but how something grew out of that discussion, what we.
All right.
That's what we're working on right now.
Well, the updates,
No.
I'm talking updates, not update assignments, but the actual liaison updates.
Okay.
And I also have library under
I
my,
have library.
yeah, I don't know. Yeah, you
Yeah. this
you
got
swapped
changed.
out library a while back.
Yeah, so I've got Parks and Rec, Concom, and ZBA,
And public safety.
and public safety, but, you know, we'll call that now.
Jeff's not a newbie anymore, so you.
Yeah, time to load him up.
Well, Jeff
Well,
attends
I'm on
the,
the school committee too, don't.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, that's true.
You're on Essex Tech.
That's true.
well, so you've got so much experience with school committee, maybe you should take the Manchester's.
I don't want any more schools.
Just throwing it out there, pal.
Okay. My understanding at the moment is I have school committee, finance, and Board of Health. John has public work, Department of Public Works, Historic District, Council on Aging, and Library.
Right.
Kathy has Bike and Ped, Downtown Improvement, and Facilities. Brian, you have Parks and Rec, ZBA, Concom, and Public Safety. And Jeff, Planning Board, Harbor Advisory, and bless
Essex.
you, Essex.
That's expected.
Yeah, unless you got something else you want me to.
We'll find you something.
Dumb question, I have a question. Did we formally vote to disband the MBTA zoning task force?
No.
We need to,
No.
yeah, we did, we kept it on because of ancillary, lawsuits that were happening in other towns. I feel we are ready to disband that. I know we jointly created it with the planning board, but can we just vote to do that, or do we need to have a big discussion with them?
I don't think it needs a big discussion.
No.
Okay, I move that we disband the MBTA zoning task.
we probably should put it on the agenda
got
for
it.
next
Yeah.
time.
Okay, I will withdraw my motion. Just put it on the agenda for next time, and
On the next time.
should we combine that with the roles and responsibilities for downtown improvement and downtown, not revitalization, what do you call it? Invigoration.
Invigoration.
And just formally disband that. We have to know when to close things off.
Mhm.
Yeah, at this point. We have. We have. Liaison reports. No, we have liaison confirmation, we are consent agenda, and I would like to remove B from the consent agenda. And consider the rest of it as,
Do you want to do the updates? for
Liaison updates.
update? That was after confirmation, and it's just
Okay.
talking.
okay, sorry, updates. Sure. Let's back up and do. Liaison update. John,
Yeah, library met, Friday. I guess it was Friday. I sat in on their, board meeting. They've got a new chair, Sarah Davis, who was elected. Actually, she filled in, I guess, the end of someone else's term, but she was elected, again. So she's the new, chair of that. Nothing, just the usual stuff going on in the library, nothing, major to report out of that. Public Works, I think we've all seen the signs that are now up.
And we've all read the comments.
That- it's been a
You know, I have
positive-
not, on what's social media saying about these?
I have read only positive comments.
I've just heard that, wow, they're really small.
I read.
And I said,
Hey,
wow, we really
Kathy
have
and
a
I
nice, did we?
Kathy and I stood next to them in the DPW garage. You said, oh, God, they're really big. But once you put them up there and you stand back a
I think I
100 feet.
posted them mostly vast majority,
That's
very
good.
positive, so I think it's a good thing.
That's,
And what's no, do we cut back on the amount of signs, right?
Right, we did.
yeah, we did.
Goes
So,
into phases, yeah.
so I think it would be helpful if DPW could communicate to us when they plan to, what are the locations of the remaining signs and when they plan to do it? Because I know they didn't have enough money to do everything this year, but I thought we instructed them to just wait till the next fiscal year, which is only a few weeks away. And so what is their plan?
They've got a couple more coming to us with regard to the bathrooms, public bathrooms.
Okay.
Also need another, I think that what I've heard is that it would be the sign for the, what I like to call the secret passage.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, I
It
haven't,
should be, it should be two-sided.
oh, it's only one
It's
sided?
only one-sided. So if you're coming from the beach, you don't see the sign.
Yeah, that was the one comment.
Yeah.
Okay.
One comment about that particular sign, its placement.
It's hidden behind other signs too.
It's hidden behind, it's on a light pole that's right behind a parking sign. It's like a very.
I don't know, is the one down here double, so that one doesn't really have to be
Doesn't.
double sided because nobody's coming from the other.
Yeah. On out of Beach Street, but other than that, I think everyone.
Okay, all right, that's,
They like the design.
we'll see what the story is with that. The Historic District Commission has had now 2 hearings on cargo. And they changed their plans. I don't know if you've seen their plans. Have you all seen their plans, I think, and know what the story is? So they've got the garage is now at the top of the hill. And in fact, so you're parking your car on the 2nd floor of your house, but that's just the way it is. They've got a 1-car garage up there. And a lot of the noise went away when the primary hearing came down the pipe a week and a half ago when they saw that the garage was now in the back and it was reduced to 3 stories from 4 stories. So there are some minor things that need to be dealt with. It was not approved at the last meeting and I guess will come up again, I guess, about 3 weeks. But it was stuff like, the dental trim work, some fencing, some railings on the.
Almost the details.
These details sort of thing, but nothing that was major. So I expect that there may be a vote on that at the next meeting, which is, I think, the 2nd Thursday of July. And Council on Aging and the Senior Center surveys are going out a week from today with regard to public opinion about the senior center. And this is to finalize messaging associated with the money raising initiative for $2.5 to $3 million. They will be surveying, they want to get 150 surveys, and they are also interviewing 50 people in person over the next, say, 3 weeks or so. They are sending the survey thing out to, I think, 2,000 people starting next week, and hope to get 150 back, cutting across all demographics. This isn't just seniors. It's a little bit of everybody. And they're expecting that they'll finalize the findings of this probably by the middle of July, and hope to start the money raising initiative at the end of the summer, the 1st of September or so. In concert with that, and I guess the facilities planning group is associated with that, the architects need to get going on a rendering, and the facility planning committee is part of that. And certainly initially and in the middle, et cetera, because there are a lot of stakeholders involved with how that floor plan is going to look in terms of people who work on this building and who would be possibly offices in there, and all kinds of people. And so that's going to have to go through a vetting process with a number of groups over the summer. But they hope to have a fairly good architectural rendering that meets at least most people's expectations by around the 1st of September. So that's got to move along, because that is obviously needed in terms of the money raising initiative. But that seems to be moving along pretty well. That's it.
Lycan Fed meets this week, and Downtown Improvement Committee has to delay their meeting until next week, so I have no news.
Sometime in this, and they haven't had, the beach is open. For what purpose, I have no idea. Wind burns, I guess, whatever. All right. The parade is pretty much all set. They've chosen a grand marshal.
Oh.
And I will let you all ruminate over that and try to figure out who it is. Okay, but something that grew out of this is, we call it these public safety coffees we have, is Jake McNeely just offhanded saying that the fire apparatus loses Wi-Fi as they get to the Singing Beach Club. Through cooperation between DPW and Parks and Rec, we now have a Starlink set up at the beach. Okay, it's going to service at this point just. We'll take care of. I can assume the apparatus as they get closer, but the beach personnel, the town employees, will keep the ATM up and running all the time now, and also take care of the concession stand. And I think that's all we're concerned about this summer.
Right.
And then we'll see how it goes, and if there's a way of expanding service to the general public on the beach.
I don't even know how that works. You have to sign in or something, or?
I'm not sure. I think it's probably a secure website right now. I mean, a secure site at this point. And I think that someone more knowledgeable than I that understands. I have problems dragging a red 6 over a black 7 playing solitaire. But I'll find a way of, the problem is the cost. I think right now, I think it's like $90 a month or something like that, or some insignificant, well, it's not insignificant, but for the service. But if we expand it to the general population and how it's going to burden the system itself, and I don't know. So these are things we're going to look into.
That should be looked into, but yeah, there are people who prefer to go to the beach and not get it.
No, I agree.
Don't tell anybody.
As I say, but it's also,
Pay for service or
so
something.
it's also becomes an issue for a lifeguard at the far end of the beach.
Right.
Sure.
Who has to call for help or something like that.
But they surely have radios.
Okay. But we've, just, so
Yeah.
that's where we're at. And why don't you just keep on throwing sand, kicking sand on. We're happy.
It's great to have it.
All right.
No, that's great.
And there's no ZBA meeting this month, so I can't report on that. I'll get back to you as soon as I know where I'm going. not letting that one go.
Planning board had their public forum. I think we were all there in the downtown visioning, so I won't go too in depth into that. One thing, actually, Brian, I noticed, which seemed like a good idea, was exit interviews for businesses that are leaving town. Sounded like a good idea to get feedback from people that have either left or.
I don't know if that happens to us or the chamber.
Yeah, but it's.
Good topic
Yes,
for tomorrow morning.
Yes,
Yeah.
tomorrow morning.
It's a good
yeah.
topic.
It is a good, some good information to gather, I think. Harbor Advisory, there was some more talk about the enterprise, during the Harbor and Enterprise Fund. The committee seems to be getting on board with that. I think it's, mostly think it's a good idea, I think. And a little more talk about the Harbor Master Office. They're still questioning having a separate committee for that. I know we talked about the building committee covering that possibly, but
Yeah, we have a lot of committees, I just,
right. Some of the people on the Harbor Advisory thought that because of the certain aspects of a harbor master office, maybe.
I think when I mean, every facility that we're going to encounter is going to have its unique elements, and when we discuss a particular facility, we ought to make sure we bring in the right representatives to deal with those unique aspects. I think that's a really good point.
Yeah. They did have a steering committee before, but COVID happened and then that was kind of where that stopped.
Did they, so the thought behind that committee is, behind that harbor master office is still to have it like around Reed Park type thing?
Yeah, so. You know, where that little beach is in the corner, like that,
Flat.
yeah, that little area right there. But it would be. What they're talking about now is it'll be either all on pilings or partially, I don't know, Greg, do you know anything about this?
Yeah, it has to be.
Has to be on
elevation-
pilings to get.
Maybe
There's
get money.
opportunity for more grant money if it's tied into Reed Park floats.
Oh, well, yes, but also, even if you're on Reed land, it would need to be elevated.
Right, right.
I was always curious, just,
There's also,
go ahead.
so a second location, there been kicked around about putting it actually on Morse Pier.
Right, on the
Where that,
commercial.
where that shelter is, basically converting that shelter into a building, enclosed building, I think, slight expansion.
What I like about that location is it services Masco.
Correct. You got your bathrooms right there.
Right. So I think that's really good suggestion. The placement of the harbor masters, I understand why they want it on that side of the train tracks. But since the launch, the ramp is on the other side of the train tracks, I've always wondered, have we ever collected any fees for the launch? For launching of boats? In other places, when you have a public landing, you have to pay like
Out here, you
$500 or
mean?
something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right here?
Yeah.
No.
Well,
Collect it.
there was talk about that.
Yeah, that's so hard to.
I was talking
Well,
about
if you can't see them, yeah, it's hard to collect.
I get,
To hear, just.
the harbor master's boat is at Reed Park, which.
Right. No, I understand it makes sense, but as part of the harbor finances, we ought to figure out what do we need to do to collect fees for launching boats?
they are actually working on that right now.
There was some talk of
Oh.
having fees for companies that regularly launch boats.
Right, for commercial. yeah.
So commercial would be easier to control. It's the casual, somebody comes down at 5 o'clock on.
They were talking about a QR code attached to Aqua. maybe.
Something, I just think it's a missed opportunity, because,
Yeah, I think it's just the problem is to have someone physically there
it's the
exceeds the
geography.
value of
It's
what
the
you're gonna
geography.
pull in. So that's kind of what
I mean, what do we think we're talking about for money?
I don't know, that's why I just wondered if
any-
the Harbor Advisory Committee ever talked about it, because in other
Yeah,
places
yeah.
where I go, the harbor master's right there. They launch a boat right there. He sees you launching a boat. He comes out and says, where's my money? So.
But your
yeah,
launch,
someone in the
yeah,
office.
but your boat ramps back here then.
That's what I'm saying. It's the geography that's the challenge, not,
Oh, if you're talking about putting something back here, you mean?
no, I just want the Harbor Advisory Committee wondering if they could look at it, you know, what would be necessary to collect the fees? I don't know what the volume is, but they do it in
I
other.
think it's pretty
harbors.
low. I don't know where
Maybe.
these trailers go.
So anybody
You have a
who,
regional,
I
other
don't know.
properties.
Some of them, but not very, they're not very many.
anyway, anyone who has a waterway sticker from here is free. So that cuts those people out. Your commercial, like Ann said, your commercial people are where
Do that. Okay.
you could do that. If, you know, a person by person basis is harder to.
Yeah, I don't know what the volume is. It's what-
Yeah, it's certain, I mean, there is talk about, it's out there, so, yeah. So,
And the school committee, is doing school committee stuff, you know, figuring out how they're making progress on their 10-year plan and their 3-year sub-plan and their year plans within, and it's good stuff. They're doing, vertical integration by subject and horizontal so that there's some consistency to what's being taught. But what we're interested in is that they are in fact starting to talk about the budget either this week or next week.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, tomorrow, there's a meeting. Right?
Even better. Not even July
Alright,
yet.
No,
School's not even out this time.
Good.
yeah.
Unlike other years.
Yes,
They're on their schedule.
it's apparently not on my schedule, but I will make sure that it gets on my schedule.
Right next.
Oh, it is on my schedule. I know because I have 15 minutes to get to a doctor's appointment after. Yeah. And I hope we don't spend the whole meeting discussing a better name than the, number question. So, and that's my liaison report. Now can we go to the consent agenda,
With the exception of B.
with the exception of B?
Therefore, I move the select board approve the consent agenda items A and C.
Second.
Any discussion? John,
Yes.
answers yes, Kathy,
Yes.
Brian.
Yes.
And Jeff.
Yes.
On the reappointments, which was B. There was some major shuffling that was going on to make room for Woody. And I've forgotten the details of it. Has that happened? Hi, Jack. Jack, go ahead.
The same issue we had last time.
Joan McCall.
But Joe McCall is going to move to housing.
And then be,
opens the at-large.
Okay,
and then be the rep for the CPC. So she'd still be on the
She would
CPC.
still be on, she would be the rep for the
But she'd be
housing,
the rep for that. That was the deal.
because Beth
Is moving.
so I just don't know if that has actually happened.
Okay. Why not?
Needs a Starlink.
So regarding the appointments,
Yes,
I think some of the, there were no new applicants. We interviewed the new applicants, right? So these are all reappointments.
Yeah.
In the future, I think it would be helpful to understand how many terms each individual has already served, just as a point of reference.
That would be interesting.
yes, I think it's, I mean, that's why we, are frequently taking a look at the committees, and I think it would be helpful to have that.
Okay.
All of these would be two? Or would some of them be one term?
No, all of these have served at least 2 terms.
Everybody here is 2 plus.
2 plus.
So the,
Yeah.
basically the second term is an automatic if they choose.
Right.
Right. These are, yeah.
There aren't too many, that I think most people do kind of do that. Okay.
I would think it works.
I would like to defer the Board of Health reappointments.
I would as well.
Mhm.
Allow them to continue until our meeting on the second meeting in July.
Okay.
Give us a chance to talk to the Board of Health. I have got, perhaps you all have, something from Sarah Melish strongly recommending Andy Olderman.
Mhm.
Did any of the other chairs comment on these reappointments?
Everybody was good.
Did we ask them about the reappointments?
I mean, I asked Brian regards to the harbor advisory. They've always been, they're very well present. Sarah's definitely said it. Cultural Council. I didn't really get any word back from Diane, but
Because one of the things we look at is, are these people attending the meetings, right? Because if they're not
Yes.
attending the meetings, they should be reappointed, and sometimes a chair needs a little help to address that issue. I'm not sure if
and I know open space is definitely. They're going.
they're, what, I'm sorry?
Steve, Olga and Patty are always there.
I'm just
Yeah,
wondering if
Steve
we
was.
should. If these are all like 3-term people, I'm wondering if we should just check with the chairs of the committees to make sure these people are
Well, I think
contributing.
Mike Chapman is
Yeah, Mike Chapman is the chair.
the chair of them,
Yeah.
and I know he's active and that
Yeah.
committee is active.
Right, I mean, for the ones we know, I'm happy to approve, but I don't.
I think most of them, but that's totally fine. I can check with a few that,
Yeah, I mean, Bike and Ped, did you ask? They have-
Steve.
they
I mean,
have, David and Dana. The two chairs, of Bike and Ped.
no, I did not check for those, no.
Check with them,
Yeah.
I go to a fair number of meetings, I'm not sure I see.
Sue.
Yeah,
Brian Fry's been there.
he's been attending.
I have no problem with that. I'm just shocked that he's been
Yeah,
there 6 years.
he can be,
No, he was
Well,
no,
you
he
can,
was
you can
first
be
of-
on multiple
He was
committees,
going-
John, why can't
no,
you?
these are,
You're on the,
he needs to get reappointed.
yeah.
Oh,
I didn't
okay.
miss the first one. Yeah, he's only been there one time, so this is just,
That's the question,
Yeah,
because
that
he has
was-
not been in town that
but
long.
we have to, but didn't he get appointed to the planning board?
Yes, he
So
did.
it's up
Got
to,
elected. Got
elected, I mean.
Yeah.
So,
And we appointed him in our first term.
Yes, I remember
Right,
he
right.
was here
But
and we appointed
that
him.
is a question I was wondering, because
So why is he on this list? That's
Well, wait a
pretty-
minute, hold on. So you belong to the
Yeah.
select board and you're
Yeah,
also
you
a
can still-
member of the,
I was on the ZBA.
That's not a problem.
Right.
I'm just saying, all of these people have served on these
Sarah
boards
Melish is
for
on
6
it.
years.
No kidding.
yeah, so I don't
That's why
think,
they're here.
right,
because
right,
they-
right.
And
Brian.
I don't
Brian
think he's
got-
lived in
no,
town.
No,
What was the exception? I think.
with the exception, I didn't get him on the last
That's a mistake.
round. That's a mistake.
I
That's
say,
why I
I'm
didn't
watching
get him.
everything.
Yeah,
I don't think there's any issue with him being on the committee, but
Oh, no.
I think
There
we need to check with the chairs of that committee and make sure that those members are attending and there's no reason if, they still want to help the committee, they could just call in whatever, but they don't have to be a formal member, so.
We can check,
Let's see, who else? So we're gonna pause Board of Health, we're gonna pause Bike and Ped. Anybody else here? CPC,
Oh,
oh,
Jack would very much like to be reappointed.
Yes. What about Dean?
And Dean Nahadas is chosen by the finance.
And we're,
He's the
and we
finance.
validated that with Sarah. Council on,
They need the people anyway. They only have
There's
five
still
people.
vacancies.
Yeah,
cultural council. I mean,
I didn't get it. Diane is stepping down, so there's 3 people on that.
okay, again, I'm fine with keeping the names there as long as we know that they are attending and contributing, so.
Yep.
I'm just trying to understand which ones we feel comfortable approving right now. If they're not attending, we should not appoint them. So. We know Board of Assessors, Board of Registrars.
Oh, they need them. They need her.
They-
And she has been
and she
going,
has been
and I
going,
contacted
okay.
Christine.
I'm not,
Yeah,
we're not just trying to put warm bodies in seats. Okay, so Board of Assessors, Board of Registrars. Todd is the Emergency Response Coordinator. The CPC, we're in good shape there. Council on Aging, we're not sure if
we're
they're,
not sure, but
okay.
we need them there.
If
But
they're-
I know, but they do attend to the meetings with Diane, because then they can't have the whole. They need to be there.
They're down 3 people.
Yeah,
I go to those meetings and they just barely get the,
yeah.
So that's
quorum.
my point.
No, that's because.
That's because they're down
and
3.
that doesn't involve
Those-
those 2 people. These 2
Two are
people.
showing up and.
That's what I'm saying, are they showing up? That is my
Yeah.
question. Okay. So Council on Aging, Cultural Council, is this resident showing up?
I'll check with Diane, but she didn't get back.
Okay, so we're gonna
Because
check.
Diane's
Cultural
stepping down.
Council. Finance Committee, we know,
Yes.
Harbor Advisory, we're
Yes.
sent there.
Yeah, we got-
Stream Team, do we know? if
Patricia Mitchell, definitely. Deborah Faze. I gotta check with. By just Jessica.
So we don't know about Stream Team. We know MAPC. Open Space, we know those folks are
Yes.
attending. Parks and Rec, Sean is
Yes.
attending. And Winthrop Field. You sure on that one?
Mike Jackman, definitely, because he's the one who responded for
And
Jane.
James Maroney. Okay, and
Zoning.
ZBA. So the only ones we don't,
She's a,
so the ones we're going to double check are Bike and Ped,
Board
Board of Health,
Cultural Council.
Cultural,
And the screen team.
and the
Stream
Stream
Team.
Team.
So is there a motion to reappoint the members of the committee that we did not just list?
Yes, I move to, I don't see a motion, but I'll move to reappoint the members on this committee list, with the exception of Bike and Ped, Board of Health, Cultural Council, and the Stream Team.
Second.
Further discussion? Jeff,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Catherine, Anne says yes.
Yay.
Okay. Town administrators report.
Yeah, briefly, just a heads up that vendor for the trash pickup, they are in the middle of negotiations with their unionized workers. Contract expires the end of this month. So there could be some hiccups in trash pickup in July, going forward, depending on how things progress. So the Republic, our vendor, has said that they are putting in, contingency plans. We'll have to see how this pans out. This is one advantage of also having a transfer station in addition to curbside pickup, that if indeed there are problems, people have that option of taking the bags to the transfer station. We'd be dealing with another issue if everyone were doing that on a Monday. But we'll have to see and think about, do we assign people different days of the week by alphabet or something like that.
Plate on your car.
If indeed this becomes an issue. So heads up, not sure how it's gonna play out.
See, listen.
So. Tony's taking
I think
notes.
Tony taking notes over there.
July 1, very convenient.
So, yeah, we haven't had this before, so this is something.
No.
First crisis for the new town administrator is trash.
We were just commenting, what is the crisis that's gonna be hitting first?
That's what I get that all the time. What's the big one? Now I know it's trash.
What's the contract with Republic? When is it up or what year?
They have another year on their contract with the town. Which is another issue that has to be negotiated. But this is separate from that. So,
I'm sorry, does that affect recycling? That's different, right? Is
No,
it just
same.
trash?
Yep.
Okay, so it's everything.
it's everything,
Okay.
Not Black Earth.
not Black Earth,
Not black earth,
but
so just trash.
recycling and trash. Yeah.
So this does expire on the 30th. You said what has another year?
Our contract.
Oh, with Republic.
With Republic has another year
It's
to
their
go.
deal with the workers.
This is their contract with their work.
Okay.
So the people may be on strike as of July 1,
Correct.
and how you'd notify the town through social media, or, I'm sorry, I'm looking over here.
I don't think you want to send anything out on
No, we don't say anything on now, but we have to be prepared.
trouble.
We'll see what kind of plan B they're able to put into place if it's needed, and how successful it is. But we need to be prepared. So, been working with Chuck and Tiffany.
So that would mean, because June 30th is a Monday, so people who have trash pickup on that Monday,
They should be fine.
they should be fine. It's people on the Tuesday.
Along the parade route.
Oh, that could be yeah.
On the parade route,
Be an issue.
Pine Street is a Monday, so we're good there, but
Yeah.
I don't know about the rest.
Central is Tuesdays.
That's right, yeah.
So maybe we'll just we'll bring, what to do, we'll put in the parade, we'll put a trash truck.
Trash, yeah.
People can throw their
Trash in there.
Kill two birds with one
It's not a
stone.
bad.
On the parade route, not to volunteer the DPW, but if we had to.
Yeah.
We could pick up on the parade route.
Interesting.
Yeah, 'cause
Well, that's a fun one.
Yep. So, like I said, hopefully we get lucky and things work out, but we need to be prepared. You already talked about the wayfinding signs.
No.
Tony and I have been spending days together. Comment on how well it's going. I think it's going well. So, a lot of information, meeting with department leaders and talking about the different projects and just getting up to speed in general.
Mhm.
We'll continue to do that this week and next. So next Wednesday, the 25th, we have an all-staff lunch. We have an opportunity to say goodbye to folks and for Tony to say hello to all staff. You're certainly welcome to come. It's at the chapel. Wednesday at noon. So, that's it for me.
Do we need an executive session?
But,
Do we need an executive session?
You don't, I could. But we're not ready to make decisions. I don't have a lot of additional information to share. I was hoping to have more. I could give you,
Why don't
2-minute update on each one, if that would be helpful, but I could also give that in writing to you.
No, I'd prefer a 2-minute updated person, just,
and anything that's in writing is public.
Sure.
yeah.
I
I
can
just,
make it-
we're here, I just
I
assumed
can-
it couldn't be.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's not
okay.
10:30, it's 9:30,
Okay,
Right,
right.
so.
Tony's gotta learn, this is how long we go. You're not in the hunt anymore. You're not Nas either.
I move that we enter into executive session, not to return to open session per MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation. If the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the public body. And I so do so declare.
Second.
John?
Yes.
Anne says yes. Kathy?
Yes.
Brian? Yes. Okay, we need to